Re-Zero, Side Story, Lugunican Papers, Chapter 1.
Shorty. Shorty Megan. A man walks down the hallway, his shoes thudding loudly. The people look at each other and quickly lose interest at the sound of his footsteps and his thick voice, as if to say, "Oh, here we go again." It is an everyday occurrence, a common sight, and not something worth talking about. The man in question walked forward without paying any attention to the people around him, and opened the door of the room he wanted to go to with the momentum of almost breaking through the wall. Shorty Megan. There you are, Shorty, huh? Yes, I am here, Shorty Megan is here, and I am alive and well. The door was opened and in the room, a small boy literally jumped up at the sound of the man's voice. He was wearing a large round hat that covered his head completely, and his bangs hid both his eyes. He was dressed in a pair of worn-out work clothes and shoes whose only selling point was their sturdiness, and it was obvious at a glance that they were worn out. This is not because of a personal sense of beauty or a desire to be unique and not conform to the trends of the world, but because of a lack of all the elements, interest, wealth, and, above all, time. This is evident in the fact that he never goes home, but instead sleeps in his workroom, which is piled high with miscellaneous papers and materials. The boy Shorty Megan wiped the drool edge of his mouth with his sleeve, hurriedly, turning to face the person. Shorty, Mo, Editor-in-Chief Morgan? What are you doing here? Morgan, yes, of course. I'm Morgan France, the Editor-in-Chief of the Dragon Nation newsletter, and Shorty, you're my man, my reporter, my limbs. Which one is it? Shorty, of course, your man, your reporter, and all of your limbs. Morgan, of course you are. But you're a little toe at best. If you're going to write an article like that, I'm not going to trust you with the role of the other toes. It would be too dangerous if I did. He was Shorty's boss, Editor-in-Chief Morgan France, who was getting angry, his distinctive, eagle-nosed face turning red. He is responsible for the publication of a newspaper that circulates within the Kingdom of Lugnica, the Dragon Nation newsletter. He is also a fearless worker who knows nothing about compromise. The editor-in-chief, who is not only tall but also loud and brash, is a genuine news addict who keeps a close eye on all the strange happenings in the kingdom and drooled over everyday events. There's only one reason why the news-addicted editor-in-chief went to the trouble of visiting Shorty, a small-time reporter. It means he saw Shorty's article. Shorty, so you went all the way to... Yes. I am honored by your praise, Morgan. Compliment? Why would I give you one? Look at my face. Look at my face. 70% or even 80% of my eagle nose is red. That's the measure of my anger, Shorty, Chief. It is 100% bright red, Morgan. If that's the case, I guess I'm angrier than I thought with this article. Barking, a dark red-faced Morgan throws a stack of papers in his hand at Shorty. It hit him in the chest and fell to the floor. It was an article that Shorty had stayed up all night writing. It was a labor of his blood and tears, and this is how he treated it. In other words, Shorty, is it that you want me to fix it? Morgan, oh, you idiot. All rejected. What are you getting a little greedy about? First of all, who's going to be excited by the idea of a massive infestation of giant rats underneath the royal capital? I was wondering if there would be any surprises along the way, but the closing words suck again. Tell me, Shorty, you'll have to see for yourself if you want the rest of the story. Morgan, shut up. Don't lead the curious reader into the dangerous underground. Just call the guards and have them exterminate them. What if some readers die or get sick from challenging the giant rats? Shorty, in this case, is it a liability issue? Morgan, idiot. The problem is that we are losing subscribers to the Dragon Nation newsletter. Shorty picks up the article on the floor, and Morgan sticks his finger in his nose. Shorty liked Morgan's ideas, even though they were based on values that could only be described as press addiction. This was because Shorty was also a news addict. That's why this article was also the result of his own hands-on research. Shorty, it was a great piece of work that interviewed people around the favelas and captured the details of the swarms of large rats that were breeding in large numbers under the royal capital. And now it's all been rejected, Morgan, of course. Back straight and chin up. The motto of Dragon Nation newsletter is, Shorty, we don't publish anything that doesn't make your heart tremble, Morgan, that's all there is to it. Shorty stood up straight, and Morgan spat at him. Shorty gritted his teeth in frustration as his face was covered with a large amount of spit. To be honest, Shorty did not hesitate to ask himself whether this was the right thing to do. During his interviews, Shorty, but once you start something, you feel like you're losing money if you stop halfway. Morgan, I've always bought your resilience, but this time it's been shown in a bad way. Speaking of bad things, I have the same impression about the drawing in this article. Shorty, what? You can't even draw? Aren't the drawings really good? Morgan, it's too well drawn. It's like the horde of giant rats that are about to move. Snatching the article out of Shorty's hands, Morgan opens the press picture in question wide. In front of Shorty's eyes, a horde of rats. A realistic drawing of a horde of rats came into view. It was so close to the real thing that you could almost smell the animal scent of the rats in the air. Rather, Shorty was overcome with the memory and fear of an actual underground encounter with a horde of rats, a sensation that was both visually and olfactorily ironed out. Shorty, ugh, Morgan, don't throw up on your own article. But a lot of readers are going to have the same reaction to your article, you know? It's Lulu Lara who drew this picture. Didn't she? Shorty, she is somewhere here. Shorty points a wobbly finger to the corner of the room as he fought back nausea. Following the movement of his finger, Morgan said yeah? As his eyes widen. In the middle of a mountain range of piles of papers there was the figure of a girl who was absent-mindedly running her paintbrush across the pile. Shorty, oh? There you are, Lulu Lara, under here. Shorty, what are you doing in this messy room? Or rather, it stinks. It stinks. You haven't bathed since you got back from the underground, have you? Oh, ugh. The girl Lulu Lara took one look at Morgan, holding his nose and fighting the feeling of vomiting, and is silent. However, unlike her emotionless expression, her hand continues to draw in the notebook on her lap. That was her role as a news illustrator for the articles in the Dragon Nation newsletter. However, Morgan, she is a real treasure. When she can make any event come to life in a picture, she can make even the most outlandish event convincing. Isn't it a pity, Shorty, it is, it's, Morgan, don't look so glum, Shorty. Shorty was surprised by this sudden change of attitude, and he couldn't help but smile, amiably. However, when Morgan saw this, he turned red in the cheeks as well as the nose. Morgan, we need to shake the reader's emotions, their true emotions. How can we do that if we can't even be honest about our own feelings? I know you don't, Shorty. Morgan, Shorty. What in the world did you join the Dragon Nation newsletter for? Was it to chase a rat's tail and carve wrinkles between the brows of the subscribers of the royal capital? What do you think, Shorty? That's not true. Shorty took a strong stand against Morgan's pitying words. Forgetting the fact that he was overwhelmed by the moment, he stared at his boss, who was 40 centimeters taller than him. Shorty's head grew hot as if on fire, drowning out the amiable smile and putting his true feelings to the tip of his tongue. So, when asked why he joined the Dragon Nation newsletter, Shorty, I, too, want to write stories that make a difference in people's hearts and the world. I didn't become a reporter to torment rat haters. Morgan, what then? How can you waste Lulu Lara's valuable time and talent, and do it while you're napping in a pile of documents? Shorty, if that was, then. Shorty grits his teeth at his boss's words and watches his partner, who always forgets to eat or sleep and devotes herself to painting, pointing out that he is giving Lulu Lara work that she most certainly doesn't deserve. Above all, Shorty himself was aware that his work was not commensurate with his passion. Shorty. Shorty choked up as he felt such a surge of passion. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw an article on the wall of his office. The article was not written by Shorty, but it was pasted on the wall as if it were an important piece of paper or a memorial. The content of the article was a perfect example of what Shorty envisioned, a world-changing article, and it is Shorty's deepest desire to write such an article. Shorty, the royal selection. Morgan. What? Morgan's one eyebrow twitched as he heard Shorty's murmur. Shorty was able to make out a change in the sound mixed in with Morgan's voice, to shake the heart of the editor-in-chief, wanting to make the heart of that first reader who sees the article before anyone else tremble. Shorty, I'm going to interview the candidates for the royal selection. We will hear the real voices and get to know the real faces of the candidates for the royal selection, women who are shaking up this dragon-friend kingdom and who are the greatest concern of the people of the kingdom. Morgan. Shorty. What do you think? Shorty, who had chosen his topic with vigor, was anxious about Morgan's reaction to his silence. A reckless choice, he might have been reprimanded for it, but Shorty's fears were shattered by Morgan's broad smile. After a few moments of silence, Shorty's eyes widen at the intensity, and Morgan's huge palm grabs him by the shoulder. Morgan. Good. Good, Shorty. That's what I'm talking about. Shorty. Yeah, my shoulder. A large hand grabbed his shoulder, and Shorty screamed in pain as his bones creaked. But Morgan's eyes lit up with Shorty's screams. Morgan, the biggest concern of the people, the royal selection. It's been a few months since the start of the selection was announced, and at first, everyone was talking about it, but gradually the buzz had faded away. Let's try to turn the people's attention back to the royal selection by ourselves. Not bad. Not bad at all. Shorty. Thank you. Morgan. Shut up, you idiot. You haven't done anything yet. Don't be happy. Shorty. Yes, indeed. I'm an idiot. Shorty is lifted up, then immediately dropped and emotionally swept away, to which Morgan spits at him. Good. Morgan spits at Shorty and sticks his finger in the air. Morgan, now that you've decided that, hurry up, Shorty. Don't let anyone else get the better of you. Get an interview with the candidates for the royal selection, and do whatever it takes to get the story out. I'll replace the rat article. With that, Morgan grabbed the article on the giant rats and ran furiously out of the room. The wind he created sent the papers in the room soaring, and Shorty's long bangs were also ruffled. But in the room, after the storm had passed, Shorty clenched his fists in passion. He felt that he had spoken out of turn, but the passion in his heart was still real. Shorty, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, I'm going to change the world. Lulu Lara, you're gonna be busy. Lulu Lara, Shorty, huh? For me. As Shorty turned around looking enthusiastic with a puffed-up nose, Lulu Lara tore off a page from her drawing book and handed it to him. There, Shorty was painted with blood running down his nose in excitement. Shorty, no, you have to say this out loud. Shoving a cloth up his nose, Shorty carefully folded the picture and put it in his pocket. Then, he grabbed his interviewing gear and was ready to launch the next part of the interview. Shorty, I've been told that after the giant rats, the next candidates for royal selection are not going to be as easy, but we're going to do whatever we can to make this interview a success. Let's go, Lulu Lara. Lulu Lara, see ya. Shorty, don't just say see you later, you're coming too. Shorty carries Lulu Lara, who has curled up ready to shut down. Shorty carries Lulu Lara on his back, and together with her art supplies, they leave the headquarters of the Dragon Nation. Newsletter in an awkward position. Lulu Lara, slow. Shorty, I'm not slowing down. I've heard that the candidates are beautiful, so I'm sure your creative juices will be flowing. It's going to be a huge deal. Shorty's adventure began, calling desperately to his apathetic partner. His steps were heavy, and his partner was lethargic, but Shorty's eyes were shining. It's a perfect day to start writing an article that will move the world. Shorty, I see it. Lulu Lara, the blue sky is blessing our way forward. Lulu Lara, it's cloudy. Shorty, Look with your heart's eye.
Chapter 2.
Dragon Nation newsletter is known as a small newspaper in the Kingdom of Lugnica. The newspaper reports a wide range of emotionally charged events in Lugunica, from happy news that decorates a peaceful life to a painful and sad occurrence in which someone lost his or her life somewhere. However, no matter what kind of emotions it provokes, there is a core to the Dragon Nation newsletter that can never be compromised. And that is, Shorty, we don't publish articles that don't make your heart tremble. It's our company motto, Lululara, blub, blub. Shorty, will you stop blowing bubbles and listen to me? I know it's a habit of yours, but you're not supposed to do that in any of the places we're covering. Shorty raises his fist and expresses his enthusiasm, while in front of him, Lululara's face is devoid of motivation. After leaving the office, the two discuss their plans for the interviews at a restaurant in the royal capital. Shorty is in charge of making the plans and explaining them, while Lululara is solely in the role of lending a silent ear. Shorty, we're going to be going around to the candidates who are participating in the royal selection. Regardless, how much do you know about the royal selection, Lululara? Royal election? Shorty, you look like you don't know anything. Scary. The attitude of total disinterest in the public's interest, even though you're in a position to be involved with a newspaper, is scary. I'm also afraid of the attitude that you're going to start drawing that scared look on my face. As you can see, Lululara is a press illustrator who makes her living drawing pictures for the newspaper. Her drawing skills are the stuff of genius, and she is a weirdo who cares about nothing else. Shorty needed to successfully manage this long-standing and troublesome partner. Shorty, I'm going to tell you, my precious partner, about this upcoming interview topic. You can just dismiss it as an explanation to help me organize my thoughts. Lululara, yes, for the time being. Shorty clears his throat with a small cough, glad that he had gotten some rapport. Then he began to explain to Lululara about the royal selection and the participants. Shorty, first of all, the royal selection is a ceremony to determine the next ruler, which was proclaimed in the royal castle about 6 months ago. 3 years from now, the king will be chosen from among the 5 selected candidates. So now we're in the middle of a competition to see who will be the king. The story of the king and his bloodline falling ill en masse may be counted as one of the most recent and unshakable cases of great calamity in the kingdom of Lugunica. As a result, the kingdom is now without a king, and the Council of Sages is running the affairs of state instead. However, this is still an unhealthy situation. In order to solve this problem, Shorty, it's a throne selection competition, or the royal selection for short. The 5 candidates for the throne are Duchess Crush Casten, Chairman Anastasia Hoshin, Baroness Priscilla Barriel, Felt Summer and Amelia Summer. Lululara, is that big? Shorty, no, it's a small number of people, considering the deadline. We don't know how many candidates will be left on the day the royal selection is decided. Lululara tilted her head and didn't seem to understand the true meaning of Shorty's words. It is easy to imagine that if the struggle for the next throne requires a candidate to have certain limited qualities, it is easy to imagine that a dark struggle, including assassination, would take place. Shorty, I mean, you can't call yourself a candidate for the royal selection if you're not deeply determined. In other words, all 5 of the selected candidates must be prepared to do something extraordinary. These are the candidates vying for the vacant throne. All will have extreme ambition, Shorty. Besides, all of them are women. In this case, I should say heroines. Crush Summer is known as Valkyrie. Anastasia Summer has risen to prominence in the Kararagai city-states. And Felt Summer, who I heard rules the over-the-poor districts. Most importantly, I heard that she has the Sword Saint with her. Lululara, mean knight amongst knights? Shorty, that's right. Oh, come to think of it, Sir Reinhard was painted by Lululara before. Lululara's reaction reminded Shorty of one of her previous paintings. However, it was not an interview. She happened to run into the Sword Saint while strolling around the capital on her day off, and he kindly agreed to Luluara's request to use him as a painting subject. In fact, Luluara seemed to be very enthusiastic about it, using her brush excitedly, and the finished picture was excellent. That one is also securely packed in a Shorty binder at work. Anyway, Shorty, if Sir Reinhardt pledges his allegiance to her, then felt Summer must be an extraordinary person, and Lululara, and Shorty, Amelia. Summer is. A feeling of dread envelops Shorty's entire body as he tries to name the next candidate. Shorty's face is bloodless and his shoulders tremble, which makes Lululara wonder, but if she knew the reason, she would be just as frightened. One of the candidates for the royal selection is Amelia, a half-elf with silver hair and amethyst eyes, the same characteristics as the Witch of Envy who once drove the world to the brink of destruction. She is said to be a demonic being, with a terrifyingly ferocious spirit clad in a cold air that freezes everything in its path. Rumor, but it is said that it has permanently frozen the land in the northern part of the kingdom and enjoys ruining the lives of the local people by causing snowstorms for fun. Of course, she is not the Witch of Envy herself, but she is dangerous enough to be rumored to be the second coming of the Witch of Envy. Up until now, there have probably been other reporters besides Shorty who have attempted to write about the same subject matter. The biggest reason why none of these interviews bore fruit was none other than Amelia. If he was going to call this an interview with the candidates for the royal selection, we naturally need to hear from all 5 of them. However, everyone was hesitant to interview Amelia. Shorty too believes that the biggest barrier to these interviews is his fear of Amelia. Shorty, but seeing Shorty frightened, Lululara runs her paintbrush through her drawing book. The fact that it is drawn didn't help, and the fact that she is not worried at all surprised Shorty, but it still gives Shorty the nudge to come back to himself. Shorty, change the world. Shorty clenched his teeth together as he remembered the challenge he gave to Editor-in-Chief, Morgan. Shorty won't lie about those words. Shorty didn't just bite down on his back teeth, he bit down on his dream. Shorty, this is no time to be scared. I'll do it, Lululara. I'm going to do my job, Lululara, and that one, Shorty, yeah, that's right, I know. Lululara hands Shorty the drawing she has finished. Shorty smiles at his own paleness and carefully puts the drawing away in his bag. Shorty, the last one is Baroness Bariel, or Priscilla Summer, who has had so many unfortunate marriages that she is known as the Bloody Bride. She is still young and beautiful, and as a result, she has been married many times, but all of them ended in tragic love. She's a tragic woman, Lululara. Tragic. Shorty, she has a good reputation in her territory, and people seem to love her, calling her the Sun Princess. I guess she has a warm charm that makes people around her smile positively. From the standpoint of having heard various previous stories, Priscilla Bariel is the one whose situation Shorty would personally like to support the most. A woman who is unfortunate enough to have to overcome the absurdity of her circumstances to achieve glory. It is a heroic tale and a story of success that will be a heartwarming experience for all. Shorty, whoa, not good. I have to be impartial. Above all, it would be disrespectful to the person who agreed to be interviewed in the first place. Lululara, other person, Shorty, that just crushed Casten. Shorty shudders as he says this, anticipating the beginning of a full-fledged interview. She is a leading figure in the kingdom and the most favored candidate currently in the royal selection. Shorty, to be honest, I was the one who thought it would be the most difficult, if not the most difficult emotionally. First of all, I didn't think she would accept my request for an interview. After all, the other party is the most prestigious woman in the kingdom in terms of nobility, and she is a woman of great honor. He thought it was only natural that he would be turned away at the door for an interview with a newspaper that was published primarily for the pleasure of the general public. In that case, he had planned to apply dozens or hundreds of times for an interview, waiting for the other party to lose their patience. Lululara, can they do it? Shorty, I don't know. Crush Summer is as martial as a woman can be. She made her father step down when he didn't need to retire yet. She's an ambitious woman, otherwise, she would not be able to serve as a duchess who is called by the title of Valkyrie. Perhaps the offer of an interview was just a calculated way to use Shorty. In that case, Shorty would be a pathetic sacrifice. Shorty, even if your opponent is nobility among nobles, with 100 battles under her belt, don't let it get to you. First, they will uncover the untold true face of the first royal selection candidate, Crush, Casten. Even if the first one might be their last interview, Shorty Meghan would fight to the end. They were prepared to do so with such a grim determination.
Chapter 3.
But, as it turned out, however, Shorty's dire predictions were unfounded. Duchess Crush Casten agreed to be interviewed by the Dragon Nation newsletter, not because of any perceived hostility toward the press in the recent past, nor because she wanted to make a spectacle of the industry. On the contrary, Crush, well then, Shorty-san and Lululara-san have been working together for 2 years. Even though you're so young, you're doing a great job, Shorty. No, really, it's not that big of a deal, ha ha ha. Shorty, blushing at the unexpected praise, Shorty puts his hat back on more deeply. In response to Shorty's reaction, a green-haired beauty with a graceful and elegant gesture was smiling with her hand over her mouth, saying, "Well, what a modest one." As Shorty admired the casual gesture, he was aware that he was being swallowed up by the atmosphere of the place, or rather, of the other party, and was inwardly flustered at what he had to do. Shorty and Lululara were received at the Casten family's mansion in the noble district of the royal capital. They were ushered into the large, spacious parlor, where they sat their butts on the too soft sofa, looking like fools. In front of him is a beautiful woman who looks like a heavenly maiden, and he feels vague about whether he is dreaming or not. Yes, a heavenly maiden, she was a woman who truly deserved such a description. Her long, luxuriant green hair hung loosely down her back, and her feminine, curvaceous body was wrapped in a graceful dress. The beauty of Duchess of Crush Casten was enough to make Shorty's brain burn. Lululara, HK, Crush, is Lululara-san next to you, okay?
Shorty, I am honored by your concern, but yes.
This is her normal behavior, so please, overlook this. Shorty was not at ease with Crush, who was tilting her head and looking at him with concern, but Lululara, who was working feverishly with her paintbrush next to Shorty, was far from ordinary. By nature, Lululara honestly followed her own inclinations. To put it politely, when she finds a superb subject, nothing can stop her, not even Shorty, because in those situations, Lululara's paintings were truly amazing. Lululara, please, Crush, well, I can have it. This is me, isn't it? Crush's eyes widen as she graciously accepts Lululara's offered picture. If you take a look at it, you will see that it is a picture of Crush, perfectly depicted in Shorty's eyes. It is a work that deserves to be praised as perfect even by Shorty, who is accustomed to seeing Lululara's paintings. Lululara's ability to realistically depict what is right in front of her eyes is demonstrated perfectly. Shorty, I'd like to hang it in my room. Naturally, Shorty's mutterings were picked up by Crush, who asked, huh? Shorty, in his haste to make up for the situation, searched for the right words to say. Crush, yes, I know, I think so too. She did such a good job of drawing it, Fairy-chan would want to hang it in their room also. Shorty, I know, right. I hope you found it okay. Shorty's eyes widened as he nodded his head in affirmation of his true feelings. Then speak of, the devil, that person arrived and whispered a Nyafufu, sitting down next to Crush, and so the newest addition to the scene is also a scarily good-looking person. If beautiful is a good description for Crush, then cute would be a good description for this person. Her gestures, the way she looks at them, and her charm and sophistication are so refined that one cannot take one's eyes off of her. But don't underestimate Shorty, he is a reporter for a newspaper. He has already done his research to find out who this girl, or rather, someone who looks like a girl, is. Shorty, not Knight, Felix Argyle Dono, correct? Felix, that's right, but that's not the way to address me. I prefer if you call me Ferris, but you're welcome to call me Ferry-chan. Shorty, oh, Then Ferris Dono please. Felix, Kufufu, how cute. Felix no Ferris, puts his finger to his lips and puts a smile on his face, is a man. His mischievous expression and gestures are misleading, but he is a man after all. Crush Casten, a candidate for the royal election, and Ferris, her knight, the two people in front of them, who were in a master-servant relationship, were the subjects of Shorty and Lululara's interview this time. Crush, Ferris, I don't want you to tease the two reporters too much. Felix, yes, I'm sorry Naya. Crush Summer. But it's really well drawn. Crush Summer, did you take the time to model yourself to her? Crush, when you say that, it makes me feel like I've done something embarrassing. No, I didn't. I'm sure she's very good at observing things. Rebuking Ferris' attitude, Crush's amber eyes look at Lululara. Instantly, Lululara, mesmerized by the beauty in her eyes, started on a second piece. Shorty, not to be outdone, coughed a little and said, Shorty, now that we have the honorable candidate for the royal selection, Crush Summer, and Knight, Ferris Dono, here, may I ask you a few questions for our interview? Crush, yes, I am honored that you have taken the trouble to hear me. I'm not sure if I will be able to meet your expectations, but I am grateful for your kind attention. Crush bowed with a refined posture to Shorty, who chose his words carefully and asked a question. He was impressed by the beauty's beauty, even her bow, but more than impressed, or struck, Shorty's entire body, causing him to let out a strange oof under his breath. Felix, oh, Crush Summer is too polite, he's intimidated. You really must have a more relaxed attitude. Crush, it's hard to relax. Be natural, you mean? Felix, well, that's not quite right, but I think that's all right. Reporter Kun needs to be a little braver than that.
Crush and Shorty, I understand.
The two of them nodded in agreement as Ferris gave orders to both Crush and Shorty. Apparently, Ferris is the one who has the most authority here. Lululara, who has the most freedom, seems to have decided to draw the master and servant together in the second picture. Shorty, well then, Crush Summer, you're the leading candidate for the royal selection, and it's been a few months since the selection began, so I was wondering if you could tell me how you're doing. Crush, you're welcome to be more natural with me. Shorty, this is the best I can do for now. The reason Shorty was flabbergasted by Crush's ladylike demeanor was, of course, her beauty, but it was also her behavior that was at odds with his prior information. The ambitious Duchess, also known as the Valkyrie, is a warrior who has ousted even her father. Her reputation does not match the beautiful woman in front of him. The only thing that matches her reputation is her beauty. In front of Shorty, who was under this impression, Crush lowered the corners of her eyes slightly and, Crush, I think it's a waste of recognition to say that I'm the most deserving of the royal selection. At the very least, I have a lot to learn, and I'm not sure I'm fit to sit on the king's throne. Felix, Crush Summer, Shorty, huh? That's what you think, huh? You're not going to give up, are you? Shorty couldn't believe his ears when he heard Crush's unexpected self-assessment of lacking confidence and unworthiness, much to Ferris' surprise. The coverage of a candidate for the royal selection is a complete disaster at the very beginning. Crush Casten, the leading candidate in the royal selection, confided to a reporter what was bothering her heart. Crush, no, please don't misunderstand me. However, Crush's dignified voice interrupted the confusion of the reporter and her knight. Shorty was instantly surprised to find that his mind had calmed down. It was a feeling that surprised even him. Breathless, mesmerized by the atmosphere the woman in front of him wore, and the fact that his mind was captivated. Crush, I am still in the process of learning a great deal. And if there is one thing I have over all the other candidates, it is my family background. That alone will not be enough for me to fulfill the responsibilities of king. Therefore, I will keep on working hard. Felix, working hard. Crush, may my inexperienced body become a vessel to bear the responsibilities of king. And, may my closest followers and vassals lend me the help that I do not have. Felix, Crush, Summer, gently, smiling, Crush's hand rested on the shoulder of Ferris next to her. Ferris' eyes moistened, turning back to face Crush. Shorty also involuntarily experienced a feeling of warmth in his eyes at the beautiful sight of this master and servant. Shorty, I think that's a very noble and thoughtful idea. But, changing the subject, could you tell us about the defeat of the white whale? That feat was done in cooperation with the other royal selection candidates. Crush, oh, for that matter, Felix, after all, Wilhelm van Astria, the man who is indispensable to this feat and the greatest contributor to the subjugation of the white whale, is in our camp. Ferris' eyes lit up in response to Crush's reply. Although surprised by his vigor, this was exactly what Shorty wanted to hear. Shorty, yes, I wanted to ask you about that too. You see, the two main characters in Sword, Demon Love Song and the White Whale have a very close relationship. Felix, that's it. Hold on a second. I'll get you all G right now. With that, Ferris jumps over the table and runs out of the room. Shorty is also nervous, because he seems to be able to interview the sword demon in person. Crush gave a foo-foo at Shorty's reaction. Shorty, oh, no, I'm sorry. I know it's an interview with you, Crush Summer. Crush, no need to be sorry at all. Besides, if it's about my followers or subjects, I think it's synonymous with interviewing me. Besides, I think Wilhelm's story should be widely known. Shorty, well, if you say so. Oh, in that case, just one more thing. He asks Crush to take into consideration of his words, even though he expresses his brazenness. If Ferris wasn't around, he feels he would be able to hear the pure opinion of Crush. A few months have passed since the start of the royal selection, and many things have happened that have caused a stir in the kingdom. Shorty, which camp is Crush Summer most interested in right now? Crush, that's the question caused Crush to pause for a moment. However, the thought and hesitation were only for a moment, and it seems that the answer came quickly to her. However, she remained smiling even as she spoke of her adversaries. Then, Crush, I think Amelia Summer's camp deserves the most attention, and that was the answer.
Chapter 4.
Shorty, totally different from their previous reputation, the interview was very friendly. From start to finish, Shorty muttered in exhaustion as he left the Casten family's mansion after the interview. In this case, the cause of fatigue would not be physical, but mental exhaustion. While his initial fears were unfounded, a sense of awe still remained more than he had imagined. However, he could clearly say that the rewards were well worth the physical and mental exhaustion. Shorty, I didn't think the Wilhelm Donno story would last that long, but Shorty wanted to know more about the white whale's defeat, and Wilhelm, with the Lord's permission, spoke very smoothly. However, it was surprising that most of his talk was about his love affair with his wife, the previous sword saint who was defeated by the white whale, and lost her life, Lululara, HK. Shorty returned to the commoner's district, pausing in front of the fountain in the plaza, while Lululara, furiously working away with her paintbrush, blushed with excitement and was about to run out of pages in her brand new notebook. Apparently, the presence of Crush and Ferris had a profoundly positive impact on her as well. Shorty, but I understand. After all, what you actually see and hear is totally different from the rumors. A masculine and ambitious duchess with a penchant for swordsmanship, Crush, if one were to analyze Crush's prominent reputation, would seem to be a somewhat snobbish aristocrat, despite her family's reputation for competency. However, in reality, Crush was always soft-spoken, well aware of her own inadequacies, and an ideal person who could stand up to others without compromising her ambition. Shorty, whoever becomes king, I want them to be like that. Lululara, personal feeling. Shorty, what? No, not at all. Reporters are fair. Reporters are impartial. When Lululara heard Shorty talking to himself, he panicked and denied it. However, Lululara, who had made Shorty so flustered, was oblivious to the situation and continued to work on her painting. Sighing at the sight, Shorty put his hat back on deeply. Shorty, anyway, I'll summarize what we've covered, because it's also our role to eliminate the Gap between such rumors and the reality that arises from misperceptions. That's around. Crush Summer, Lululara, HN. Lululara rubs the bottom of her nose with her finger and hands Shorty the picture. Shorty looks at it and raises his eyebrows, as expected of Lululara, a genius at drawing press pictures, and what she wants her readers to see. It was a beautiful master and night image of the two of them leaning together, holding hands. Shorty, yes, this is a good one. That's what I'm talking about, Lululara. Lululara, happy, with beautiful girls. Shorty, no, I'm not looking at them that way, and Ferris Dono is a man, okay? Although unsettled by the way they looked at him, and distorted his reporter's soul, he had no complaints about the content of the interview and the quality of the news picture. However, this is only the first interview, Shorty, we still have a long way to go. It's especially important to be vigilant about the next subjects we cover next, Lululara. That's so, Shorty, don't say that like you're stunned. I really do. Because the next candidate we're going to interview is not from this country, it's from another country. Shorty mentioned another country and Lululara looked as if she had never heard of them before. Shorty had already explained to Lululara that this should not be the first time she had heard of them, but that was fine. However, this time around, Lululara must also share the same sense of urgency. Shorty, Anastasia Hoshin Summer is the chairman of the Hoshin Trading Company, a powerful company in the Kararagai city-states. She is one of the most powerful people in Kararagai. She has come all the way across the country to compete for the throne of the kingdom of Lugnica. Do you smell that? Lululara, I took a bath. Shorty, it's not your smell. If you had smelled it in the first place, we would have been incredibly rude with Crush Summer. In the first place, it was a mistake to ask Lululara, whose nose might have been tripped by the paint fumes. Shorty's sense of smell for conflict was a sense that needed to be honed. That is the division of roles between partners, and that is the role Shorty was supposed to play. Shorty, so far, if there has been any interference from other countries, has only been from the Wallachian Empire to the south. In fact, before the royal selection, there are stories that representatives of the Council of Sages secretly went to Wallachia to sign a non-aggression pact. Everyone assumed that it was the south that everyone should be on the alert for. Anastasia, who was now a candidate for the royal selection, is an unexpected threat from the west. Then, Shorty, you can't help but feel that there's something fishy about the finest of knights, Julius Ducilius, who has expressed his support for Anastasia Summer. Lululara, are they bathing? Shorty, he's the one they call finest. I would be a disappointment if they didn't bathe. Even if he's black-hearted, I hope he bathes. Of course, it would be better if he didn't have this gut feeling. However, it is impossible to know the true reason why a promising talent, who is said to be highly trusted even in the knighthood, would seek to install an influential person from another country in the position of king. For what purpose? The Ducilius family is a family of knights that have been around for generations, and there was no record of them being disrespected by the kingdom of Lugnica. Then there is one possibility, Shorty, either Sir Julius is tremendously ambitious or he's a traitor. Lululara, bad spot. Shorty, I don't like it if that's the case, so it's like one of those things. What are they up to, anyway? That's what I'm trying to get at least a clue from this interview. Tightening his fists, Shorty renewed his resolve. After the interview with Crush, Shorty's confidence and a new sense of purpose was awakened in him. It was to uncover the truth about the royal selection. Needless to say, the rumors about Crush differed greatly from her actual personality. Thus, there were no concrete principles for deciding who would be the next king. The Dragon Nation newsletter will serve as a guide for those who might have been misled. Shorty, no, it's not the Dragon Nation newsletter, it's us, Lululara, big time. Shorty, that's right. We've already started running. Then we have to keep running until we make it. I'll do it. That's why. Shorty pulled out a new drawing pad from his press bag and handed it to Lululara. She took it, with a puffed-up nose and a twinkle in her eye. Lululara is full of energy, and Shorty is full of a sense of purpose. With this momentum, Shorty, I don't care what Anastasia Summer is up to or what plans she's hiding. I won't be fooled by her pleasant words, I'll find out her true intentions.
Chapter 5.
My purpose? O' course it's to get the kingdom of Lugunica, ain't it, Shorty? Ugh. Shorty's eyes widen at the words of the woman, resting her elbows on the table and resting her hand on her chin. She is a woman with a soft, gentle demeanor. Her mischievous expression, somewhat reminiscent of a noble cat, and her previous words shatter Shorty's resolve directly. Never before had he been affirmed with a big smile for his determined attempt to uncover his opponent's innermost thoughts. What is it? That's a very over-the-top reaction. It makes me so happy. Anastasia Summer, you should not be so playful. I think it's somewhat inappropriate. Anastasia, they're mad at me. My night is too serious for that. The woman who sticks out her tongue is Anastasia Hoshin, the young chairperson of a large company, the Hoshin Trading Company, who looks like the word cute dressed up in clothes. She has long, wavy, light purple hair and wears fluffy furry clothes even in warm weather. Although short in stature and fragile in appearance, her light blue eyes are filled with a strong, rebellious spirit, and one cannot help but be charmed by her uncomplicated persona. Anastasia is as beautiful as Crush, and Shorty wonders about the reasons for her selection as a candidate for the royal selection. Shorty thought, no way, is it possible that they are screening candidates based on their appearance? Anastasia, You're staring at my face, thinking 'bout something? If there's something on your mind, I'd like to hear it. Shorty, no, I was just wondering what is going on, since both you, Anastasia Summer, and Crush Summer are so beautiful. Anastasia, Anastasia put her hand over her mouth and rounded her eyes. Her reaction made Shorty say, oh, and he cursed himself for his bad habit of making careless remarks once again. However, Anastasia laughed at Shorty's words, and the person sitting next to her nodded. Well, I agree with you, Anastasia Summer. In addition to your great intelligence and business acumen, you are also a very attractive woman. Anastasia, if you don't take it seriously, you'll be wasting the reporter's time and effort in trying to make the place more relaxed. Don't ya think? I am sorry about that. I should have taken more care on my part. Shorty, sorry, it's so difficult to understand what's going on here. Ha ha ha. Shorty apologized for his stream of words, and he fondled his hat and faked a wry smile. What else could he do? The second candidate for royal selection, the master Anastasia, and her knight Julius Ducalius. The royal selection candidate interview tour is going much better than originally expected. The candidate for the royal selection, shrouded in mystery, surely would not like such an interview. Shorty's preconceived notions were repeatedly met with a flurry of offers for interviews. Of course, there is a good chance that negotiations with the remaining 3 individuals will be very difficult down the road. Shorty, now we have to make the most of our good fortune. Fortunately, Anastasia, who was in the royal capital for a business meeting, agreed to be interviewed, and Julius, her knight, was also allowed to be present. Lulu Lara, now standing in front of the two, is probably in agreement with him. Shorty, and by the way, was it okay to do the interview in such an open area? Anastasia, we coulda welcomed Em at our store, but that woulda made the reporters nervous, you know. I didn't want people thinking I was threatening Em by asking Em to write articles that would suit us. With that said, a smiling Anastasia turns her attention to the traffic in the royal city. This place, where people come and go right in front of them, is the terrace of a coffee shop, facing the main street. It was Anastasia's hope to conduct the interview in such a public place. Shorty's intention was not to force an unwanted article on them. The way Anastasia dared to be interviewed in a public place showed a strength not found with Crush, which is more straightforward, and showed another aspect of Anastasia's shrewdness. Shorty, but if that's the case, then the statement about getting the kingdom is true. Anastasia, I ain't hiding my true feelings, and I've said in front of other candidates and the Council of Sages, and I wondered if that child would look at me if I asked them something a little bit more dramatic. Shorty, that child. Oh, you mean Lululara? Anastasia's gaze fell on Lululara, who was sitting on a chair, holding her knees awkwardly, and she was painting with a paintbrush, ignoring the content of the interview. Nevertheless, this was the best way to approach Lululara's work. Shorty, actually, Lululara is at her best working in this style. And if you are not uncomfortable, please let me leave it this way. Lululara, uncomfortable. Shorty, Lululara. Apologize with me now. Apologize. Straighten your neck up. Anastasia, what did I say to ya? I was going to continue, but you were too quick. I didn't have time to interrupt ya. He quickly grabbed Lululara by the neck and tried to make her lower her head, but failed, because of the unusual strength in her neck. Anastasia laughed at Shorty's impatience. Anyway, Julius, well, I must say that she is very focused. Shorty Dono, may I take a look at her work? As a matter of fact, my brother paints too. Shorty, if your brother is. Oh, as long as you don't talk to her, I think she'll be fine with it. Julius, I guess, if I call out to her, it would disrupt her concentration? Shorty, rather, when I talk to her, she ignores me, which makes me feel worse. Even though it is necessary for work, it is quite hard to be ignored for days, if not hours. Julius, perhaps taking Shorty's response as a sign of Lululara's professionalism, said, I understand, and went behind her back to observe her work without talking to her. Should this be taken as pure curiosity, or should it be considered a check against the possibility of undermining Anastasia? The occasional exhale of admiration, indeed, may be an act to catch Shorty off guard. Anastasia, you're a child with a rich imagination. Maybe it would be better if you became a novelist. Shorty, what are you talking about? I'm a reporter, my job is to tell what I hear and see as it is. I'm not a writer who comes up with outlandish ideas and fantasies. Anastasia, oh? Well, if that's what Cha say, let's just leave it at that. Her implied answer made Shorty feel like she was playing him every step of the way. If he continues to fall for her tricks, he will not be able to conduct the interview. At this rate, the statement about taking over the kingdom is just a ploy to mess with Shorty. Anastasia, what, you thinkin' I'm lying? But it ain't a lie, Shorty, eh? Anastasia, you had the courage to apply for the interview, didn't ya? But if we mislead with lies and false pretenses, it would be disrespectful to their reporter's spirit. Shorty is breathless as Anastasia folds her hands in front of her face and gazes at him. As usual, he was engulfed. But it was both surprising and inspiring for Shorty to be made to feel that way, not to think that they were lying to him. Crush drew Shorty in by talking about her own inexperience, saying that she was on the road to building up. Anastasia gave Shorty the impression of seeing something different, something spectacular. It is a fascination that makes him want to hear more from her, both as an individual and as a reporter. Shorty, oh, okay, so if you can answer some of my candid questions today, I'd love to hear from you. Anastasia, it's a bit embarrassing to be so frank, though, ain't it? Besides, it's an opportunity for you to write a good article. So we've added a little bit of extra flair to Shorty. A little flair, is it? What exactly do you? Shorty's question as to whether or not they would do it was interrupted in mid-sentence. The sound of the shoes was loud and clear. Shorty learned for the first time that a person's existence can even be affected by the sound of their shoes. However, this sentiment is completely lost in the distance when the owner of the footsteps enters the scene. ? You have got quite a lot of nerve calling upon on mineself, she fox. Shorty's throat tightened involuntarily as the indescribable heat burned his eardrums. The beauty that appeared on the street and peered at Shorty and the others sitting in the storefront, the voice that was spun from her lips was full of magic that captivated the hearts of the audience, and Shorty was in fact captivated. Shorty's rigid appearance was met with a frown from the beauty's shapely brow. ? What is it, child? It would be impolite to stare at mine face. Shorty, you are so sorry. I didn't mean to. ? If you are going to look with dignity. It is only natural that others should be attracted to mine beauty. The crimson-eyed, extravagant beauty presented herself with a fan in her hand. She is violently beautiful, with dazzling orange hair adorned with jewels and a beautiful, busty body wrapped in a blood-colored dress. The features of her appearance and the air of absoluteness she wears tell Shorty about this beautiful woman's true identity with her burning presence. And then, Anastasia, let me introduce ya, reporters. She is a princess, a candidate for the royal selection, just like me. Shorty could only reply in his mind, I know who you are, as Anastasia said in an easygoing tone, Shorty. And so, even as Shorty's thirst for sound and the illusion that his heart was splitting open, only, the sound of Lululara's painting, her brush feverishly moving, was echoing incessantly. Only now he was seriously and deeply envious of Lululara, who could immerse herself in her own world.
Chapter 6.
Shorty, I'm so happy to see everyone here. The weather has been so beautiful, and I'm struggling to think of how to thank you all for coming, but the sun is bothering my eyes. Yes, Shorty's heartfelt and honest words of greeting, which he managed to squeeze out with great effort, were mixed in with the second half of his speech, but if that was the extent of his roughness, it was amiable. Even Chief Morgan, who is no stranger to the Dragon Nation newsletter, would not be immune from a sense of urgency in such a situation. Shorty, on the other hand, is still a novice reporter. Of course, this project was launched with a mindset of not using that as an excuse. Anastasia, reporter-san. You have a great reaction, don't you think so, Princess? Priscilla, I will admit that the child has a certain cuteness, but to agree with you is truly disgusting. Anastasia, well, you're a very difficult person to deal with. I was expecting that kind of attitude from you. When Anastasia put her hand over her mouth and smiled, the beautiful woman sitting opposite her narrowed her eyes disapprovingly, let out a small snort, and shook her ample breasts. Shorty felt his preparedness shatter with a resounding sound in the face of both of them. Of course, the beautiful woman facing Anastasia, Priscilla Barriel, she is one of the candidates for the royal selection, competing for the throne of the Kingdom of Lugunica. This means that two royal selection candidates will be face-to-face at this meeting. And then, Shorty, this is so shockingly sudden, and without telling me. Julius, I'm sorry, it was Anastasia Summer's plan to be duplicitous, and I cannot apologize. Enough to Shorty Dono and Miss Lululara. Shorty, I'm sorry you have to apologize, Julius. Hey, Lululara. Lululara? Julius apologizes on behalf of his master, but he is in awe of even that. Shorty, suffering from severe heart palpitations, turned to his partner to at least share the heartache. But Lululara responded not with words, but with a picture taken from her notebook. The picture depicted there was Shorty, foaming at the mouth and looking pale. Shorty shrugs his shoulders as Julius apologizes on behalf of his master for his deviousness. Shorty asks his companion to agree with his shrug, and Lululara, who is less talkative, thrusts out a drawing she has finished to Shorty. When Shorty received it and checked it, he saw that the drawing was of Shorty's face, foaming at the mouth. Shorty, I'm glad you're having fun. Anastasia, what's this? Whoa, you're really good. Can I have this as a souvenir of today? Shorty, please feel free. If you don't mind my face looking like that. Shorty offered the painting to Anastasia due to its unexpectedly high praise. It was a strange feeling to know that his flustered face would remain in Anastasia's possession, but Lululara was proud as a partner to know that she liked her painting. Anyway, ? That's it, right? That's the start of the so-called joint interview. Well, I'm relieved to hear that it's that way, because I'm pretty sure that on-the-spot interviews and the princess don't go well together. A strange-looking man sitting behind Priscilla laughed and shrugged his shoulders. We've already been introduced to them, but they look striking for different reasons than Anastasia or Priscilla's good looks, not that they're as handsome as Julius, or anything like that. Like Julius, a knight in the service of Anastasia, Al is a knight of Priscilla, though the man himself denies it. Al, I'm the princess's clown. I've always hated knights. Oh, and I'm not talking about you, finest San, okay? I was just talking generally, Julius. I do not feel nor think I was being provoked. Sorry, but I have a fondness for knights. This, too, is a general statement, as Aldonno would say. Julius and Al exchange words of this nature as they stand behind each other's masters. As far as Shorty can see, the impression is that the masters are quite waspishly talking with each other, but not so much between these two, it seemed. Shorty, it helps that you two knights are not as argumentative. My heart couldn't take it. Frankly, the situation is tantamount to being duped by Anastasia, but they were at least willing to give that much consideration. Priscilla, it is understandable that you would try a different flavor to the interviews with the candidates for the royal selection than the one that preceded it. Shorty's mind was completely distracted by Priscilla, who crossed her arms and quietly opened up the conversation. She proudly flaunts her breasts on top of her slender arms and looks around at everyone here. In turn, Shorty, Lululara, Al, Julius, and finally glances at Anastasia. Priscilla, I simply do not understand this combination. She Fox, why did you choose to pair myself with you? Anastasia, I guess so. For sure the other two would have done the same thing. I don't think either Felt San or Amelia San would have refused if I had been the one suggesting it. But, Priscilla, Anastasia, I thought that the princess would best understand the intentions of my proposal. Anastasia smiles softly as she puts her raised finger to her lips. Shorty's cheeks somehow relax. At the silence, Shorty Megan, somehow turn this current adversity into an opportunity. Priscilla, well, no matter. There are those who deny that playing petty tricks is an evil thing to do, but unlike them, myself is not one of those obstinate people. The she-foxes' schemes have their own meaning. Al, oh, whoa. The princess can break too. That business owner over there is really good. Al whistled Anastasia's praises in response to Priscilla's slowing down of the pursuit. Anastasia responded, great, to which Julius put his hand on his chest. Julius, thank you for your understanding. Now, Shorty Dono, I know this is somewhat different from what you had originally planned, but would you be willing to continue the interview? Shorty, huh? Oh, yeah. Yes, you can count on me. At first, I was surprised and nervous and my legs and back were shaky, but if I retreat now, my journalistic spirit will become corrupted and burst. Thanks again for this, Anastasia. Yes, please treat us well. Priscilla, hard work is a virtue of children. Strive to work your hardest. With the willingness of both of these camps, Shorty was finally able to get himself back in the right frame of mind to cover the interview. Once he was in the right state of mind, the questions he needed to ask came to him quickly. First of all, a question to Priscilla, who joined in late, the same question that he asked Anastasia earlier. Shorty, so, let me ask Priscilla Summer first. I have already asked Anastasia Summer, but I would like to know what you intend to do after becoming king. Priscilla, what did the she-fox answer with? Priscilla raised an eyebrow at Shorty's question. Her gaze then flicked to Anastasia, and she waved her hand, meeting her gaze. Anastasia, my answer is the same as it was at the castle. Unless the princess has forgotten. Priscilla, if thyself is obedient to thy greed, there will be no room for that platitude to change. Anastasia waves her hand in the air, and Priscilla opens the fan she has pulled from her breasts. From Priscilla's answer, it appears that Anastasia's declaration at the castle regarding the reason for her participation, that she would obtain the kingdom of Lugunica, was true. No doubt about it, but still, what spectacular greed! Shorty couldn't keep his mouth closed. Shorty, I am amazed at the grandiose ideas of Anastasia Summer, at Priscilla Summer. But, what? The public wants to know what all the candidates for the royal selection are thinking about going into the royal selection. The royal selection has commenced, and the battle to determine the next king has already begun. However, many of the royal citizens, including Shorty, are not content with just knowing the mindsets and personalities of the candidates participating in that royal selection, or even how they intend to lead the kingdom into the future. Information is easily transmitted, its form changed, and even its color and fragrance. repainted. Thus, 3 candidates for the royal selection were contacted for interviews, and Shorty was already greatly ashamed of himself because of the difference between their previous reputation and their personalities. Priscilla is not a fragile maiden tinged with tragedy and misfortune. She was a maverick with a magnificent temperament and charm, clad in a crimson, reminiscent of both bright flames and fresh blood. What does she envision for the future of the kingdom? Priscilla: do nothing. Shorty: huh? Shorty, who had been anticipating what the answer would be, was taken aback. His mind goes blank, and Priscilla's reply reverberates over and over again. Shorty: nothing? Doing nothing means, Priscilla, you can take it at face value. Mindself has no particular interest in the kingdom or its subjects. All things in this world belong to Mindself from the beginning. Shorty: Priscilla, Mindself does not wish to disturb the harmony of nature. Of course, I will take care of maintaining and pruning. But the world is beautiful as it is. This world is made for mine convenience. Therefore, if Mindself is on the throne, there shall also be prosperity. Priscilla's nonchalant answers seeped into Shorty's brain as she rested her chin against her hand. It was so absurdly ridiculous in its logic that it seemed like a joke that deserved to be laughed out of the room. It was a prideful idea, a fantasy that not even the pinnacle of the kingdom could truly hold. However, what seemed like a joke did not sound like a joke to Shorty. It is not because Priscilla is frightening that he is unable to laugh it off. It is because Shorty's soul accepts that the words she utters were not untrue. Anastasia: as usual, the princess's logic scares me. If that were true, everyone but us would have no reason to oppose her. Priscilla: I'm sure the other wishes can be fulfilled without them ascending to the throne. But your greed is the only thing that cannot be compromised. Therefore, you are mine enemy. Anastasia: Ara, thanks for the high praise. I think of the princess as an enemy, too. Despite her composed appearance, Anastasia's retort was equally sharp. Since both candidates for the royal selection were unexpectedly interviewed at the same time, one would have thought that they would have a somewhat more relaxed conversation, but such expectations were quickly discarded. Shorty: although, that's why it's worth getting to the heart of the matter. As for Priscilla's statement earlier, it is necessary to choose the right words so that they are not misinterpreted. But it's only a matter of right and wrong, no need to dramatize the facts. Unmistakable statements from the candidates for the royal selection, thoroughly reporting the full extent of their true intentions. Shorty: what are your impressions of the other candidates? Anastasia: at the moment, the most promising person is Crush-san, ain't it? She's in a solid position, but the question is how much support she'll get for her policy. Priscilla: that young girl from the slums was the embodiment of the boast, was she not? She is the pinnacle of fools whose aspirations have only become so great that they cannot see their own shortcomings. If she continues to be a fool, there would be nothing to see. In response to Shorty's question, Anastasia and Priscilla lay out their words. Is not interrupting the other's statements a sign that there was no room for disagreement there? Shorty frantically wrote down the 2 quick-witted responses in his memory. Crush, and now this is a response on felt. Then, Shorty, how do you feel about the 5th candidate, Amelia Summer? Anastasia and Priscilla: irrelevant. The question, which was prepared to cut deep, was answered with one simple word. Shorty, breathless, and flushed with the intensity of those simple words, his mouth agape. Shorty: what is the reasoning behind that? Anastasia: I don't need to tell you, but Amelia San's origins are a stumbling block to begin with. A half-elf with silver hair and amethyst eyes would be a perfect example of tragic features, if there were one. Priscilla: it is not a matter of questioning one's qualifications. Whatever their nature, the common people are ignorant. They can only judge by what we want to see and hear. Despite the differences in the words they put together, the meaning of their story is the same. The situation surrounding Amelia, the last of the candidates for the royal selection, is grim, and is no longer in question as to her state of being, and it was a feeling that Shorty himself had. Shorty: I've heard that Amelia Summer, like Anastasia Summer and Crush Summer, were instrumental in the subjugation of the white whale, which was one of the 3 great witch beasts, and the defeat of a Sin archbishop, Anastasia, it's not strictly speaking Amelia San's own work, but that of her knight. And the wounds of the witch of envy is not so shallow that it can be wiped out just by that. Right, Julius? Julius, it is rather unfortunate to say. When Anastasia turned to Julius for affirmation, he shook his head, his long-lashed eyes downcast. Julius, I don't know how much both the white whale and the battle with the Sin archbishop will touch the hearts of those who listen. However, as Anastasia Summer said, one cannot expect much. Al, it's a shame. If you don't get any recognition for all that, it's not like you can say what you're doing it for. Do you do it in order to just lose? Julius, Al Dono, that's not the right way to put it. Al, not good? That's the way it's supposed to be. But what's the difference between what you and I are saying? You and the princesses agree on that, don't you? Julius wrinkled his brow, and Al acted somewhat hypocritical. With his only arm, his right one, he used his hand and fumbled with the seam of his helmet, making a ticking, metallic sound. The dry sound seems to represent the unchangeable reality that awaits Amelia, and Shorty too felt somewhat depressed. However, Priscilla, in all things, there are winners and losers. However, the conditions of victory are determined by oneself. It is not a matter that can be easily determined based on external factors. Al, Princess Priscilla, there is no doubt that the half-demon is not worthy of being discussed as an adversary in the royal selection. Is everyone involved so stupid that they can't understand that? Mineself does not believe so. The opinion of Al, the follower, is so overridden by Priscilla, the master. Al was indeed surprised to hear this, and tilted his head and said, Oi, Al, I didn't expect to get shot in the back. Don't you agree with me, right, Princess? Priscilla, the process is the same, but the conclusion is different. The same can be said for the mindset of that half-demon. Al, so, Princess, you're saying the girl doesn't want to be king? You're saying she has another goal in mind, Priscilla, otherwise, it would not make sense. Besides, Al's slightly heated tone was laced with a hint of desperation. Shorty wonders about that, but doesn't have time to interject. But that is just Shorty's situation. Shorty's situation is nothing compared to the powerhouse that is Priscilla's. Anastasia, I'll have to preface this by saying that if things are gonna continue as they are, Priscilla's eyes narrowed and she snorted at Anastasia as she continued. The fact that she did not dismiss it as misguided suggests that they were of the same opinion. This means that both parties share the same perception of Amelia. Anastasia, interesting and fun, don't ya think? It's a game that was doomed to defeat right from the start, but Amelia San and her camp still took on the challenge. They got a plan to turn this situation around. Ain't that what you're sayin', Priscilla? If your intention is to participate in the war for the sake of fixing the numbers, then you are not worthy of being in mine eyes. If you prove yourself worthy, you will naturally be reflected in mine eyes. Smiles and taunts are two conflicting reactions, but Shorty is strangely moved. For some reason, the emotions that both Anastasia and Priscilla expressed toward each other, both of them seem to be expectations. Al, damn, I feel like I'm being stepped on. It would be better if the princess really stepped on me, instead of my feelings. Julius, Aldono, we are both in front of the press. As a knight, you should be careful what you say. Al, thanks for the heads up. But I'm not a knight and I don't want to be one. Julius, that is regrettable. I truly mean it. In response to Julius's meditating answer, Al rattles the seams of his helmet to scare him off. Behind the gesture, the original franticness is nowhere to be seen. Or maybe Shorty was wrong about that, as well. Shorty, thank you very much for your valuable words. Now, if you could, please tell us how you feel about the opposing candidate, the person in front of you. Al, you got a lot of courage, reporter-san. Shorty asked a no-nonsense question, to which Al responded with genuine admiration. It was a question that made Julius chuckle, but there was no way not to ask it. Both parties are right in front of each other. This is the perfect opportunity to express their true feelings without any judgment. In fact, Anastasia and Priscilla probably thought it was a question that would be asked. Anastasia and Priscilla looked at each other and opened their mouths at the same time. Then, Anastasia, I'll kick ya out. Priscilla, break you by mine hand. They exchanged hostility, which could be considered the greatest praise at the moment.
Chapter 7.
Shorty, th, that shortened my life. Lululara, tired. Lululara pats Shorty on the back as he leans back in his chair, his face an ashen shade of grey. Holding her knees in her chair, Lululara was unusually attentive to Shorty, perhaps a little more aware of how much work Shorty had put in to get through the interview. In fact, it was a marvelous interview, as evidenced by Lululara's overflowing creative spirit. The number of news illustrations depicting Anastasia and Priscilla from various angles were the best to date, and Editor-in-Chief Morgan was pleased with the quality of the work. Some of them include a shot of Julius and Al, their followers, and they are a perfect record of the coverage. Shorty, but this bias now, Lululara. You have a rather strong interest in their looks. Lululara, is a misunderstanding. Shorty, if you compare the number of pictures of the two candidates for the royal selection, with Sir Julius and Al Dono, it's not very convincing. I mean, you only drew one picture of Al Dono. Lululara, draw only what makes heart tremble. Like you said, Lululara used the Dragon Nation newsletter as an excuse for dodging Shorty's challenge. Shorty could scarcely resist. The only thing is that there was one moment when Lululara's heart was shaken as well as Al's. Lululara drew it because it looked so serious. Shorty, Al Dono is serious. Yeah, he looked serious. The piece Lululara captured of Al is from a moment of his disagreement with Priscilla. Shorty was caught off guard by Al's response to a question about another candidate, Amelia. Shorty, after we are done with these interviews, maybe we can do a deep dive on the Knights of the Royal Selection candidates, as it would be interesting to learn more about Amelia Summer's camp and its knight, Lululara. But next one is more important. Shorty chuckled at Lululara's eagerness to move from one subject to the next. Shorty, I still think Lululara is a sucker for good looks. I think you're obsessed with your next interview subject. Lululara, who is the next one? Shorty, you know it, but you're just oblivious. No, maybe it's the knight that you're obsessed with. You're not seriously forgetting. Lululara, didn't hear you. Shorty, it doesn't matter why. It's also a problem that you didn't listen. Shorty laments the unreliable memory of his beloved partner, pen in hand, as he summarizes the content of the interview before it slips out of his memory. However, unexpectedly, they were able to interview Priscilla at the same time, bringing the total number of candidates for the royal selection interviewed to 3. 2 more to go, and the next target of the interview will be Shorty, Feltsummer. She also has an unusual background, though she's been overshadowed by Amelia Summer. Lululara, color. Shorty, it has nothing to do with your paintings, it's different, meaning unusual. Actually, Feltsummer is an orphan who grew up in the streets of the poor district of the royal capital. I mean, she's just like us. Lululara. Shorty says this to Lululara, who is holding a drawing book in her lap, looking straight into her eyes. Both Shorty and Lululara, who now work as reporter and news artist respectively for the Dragon Nation newsletter, were originally abandoned by their parents and were among the children of the poor, scavenging for garbage in the slums of the city. Most of the time, the children are stuck in that environment and end up doing evil or being preyed upon by the wrongdoers. Fortunately, Shorty and Lululara were spared from such a fate. Both of them have earned their current positions by being recognized for the talent and passion they possess. The same can be said for Felt. However, her current situation is a lofty one, beyond the bounds of imagination. Shorty, there are many rumors flying around about Feltsummer, many of which are untrue. I'd love to ask her questions about that too. But it's her knight that's getting the most attention. Lululara, Saint. Shorty, yes. The sword Saint Reinhard van Astria, he is the knight who supports Feltsummer. And his declaration of support has a huge impact. For many of the people who read the Dragon Nation newsletter, the royal selection, candidates who will live in the royal castle are above the clouds. This was no different for the royal family when the king was alive and well. Therefore, if there is a celebrity that the people are interested in, it is the one whose name they have heard most often. In this respect, Reinhard, the sword saint of this generation, has the greatest influence in the kingdom. Even the people of the capital are more interested in the sword saint than the king. The difference is even more obvious when it comes to the people outside of the capital who don't have the opportunity to interact with the royal family or look up at the royal castle. Shorty, of course, felt Summer will use the influence of Sir Reinhard to win the royal selection, because many are dazzled by the prestige of the sword saint. That's why. Lululara, why? Shorty, we will not let that prestige deter us, and we will truly find out what Felt Summer has to offer. Shorty's fists clenched in determination. Lululara understood how far he was willing to go, and she held up her drawing pad with an unmotivated look and leisurely movements. Fortunately, the coverage up to this point has been going smoothly, but it is hard to say that everything has gone according to plan, and that it is all just a result of the circumstances. So, from here on out, they will be striving to make up for it, no matter how dazzling the sword saint may appear. Shorty's journalistic heart of steel was still trembling.
Chapter 8.
Welcome to the Astria domain, to the both of you, reporters. And so Shorty and Lululara were greeted by a fiery young man. He is an unexpectedly beautiful young man with blazing red hair and blue eyes that encapsulate the clear sky. Shorty had previously admired the quality of one of Lululara's paintings of him before, and the subject himself greeted Shorty and Lululara, who had come to interview him, with a smile. The knight amongst knights greeted the guests, but their attire was far from knightly. Shorty, Sir Reinhard, right? Reinhard, yes, that's right. Thank you for coming all the way from the royal capital. The young man Reinhard nodded to Shorty, who forgot his nervousness and faltered in surprise. He was dressed in a white shirt and black trousers, a light, rustic look, without the uniform that indicates his position as a knight or member of the royal guard. He is smiling with a towel around his neck, and he does not even have his dragon sword, a synonym for sword saint, at his waist. But, looking carefully, you can see that he has it propped up on the ground beside him. It was a sign that he had shed his sword saintness. The proof is in the fact of what he was doing right before he greeted Shorty and Lululara. Lululara, you're gardening? Reinhard, oh, that's right. I'm taking care of the garden and flower beds at the mansion. This morning, I finally got the buds to bloom. Lululara, pretty. Lululara tilted her head and Reinhard answered her question by indicating the flower bed with a hand. Reinhard was proud of himself, and the flower bed behind him was a magnificent sight. The flowers in bloom were red, white, and yellow petals. The most eye-catching feature of the garden is the colorful flower beds, but the carefully tended trees and shrubs also look like a work of a skilled craftsman to the untrained eye. As one would expect from the sword saint, he was also very skilled in pruning the garden, and using scissors for that purpose. Shorty, no. I'm impressed, but do they usually let you do that? I mean, you're the sword saint, and you're gardening. Lululara, complaining about saint? Shorty, I couldn't and wouldn't do anything so rash. Shorty's eyes widened as he complained about the seemingly wasteful use of the sword saint. Immediately, he was hit by Lululara's signature ladder removal, and he hurriedly pulled the ladder back himself. Reinhard laughed a little at their exchange, took off the protective gloves he had on, and, Reinhard, I see, I guess tending a garden doesn't suit the sword saint. What do you think I should do? Shorty, let me see, since Sir Reinhard is so famous that there is no one in the kingdom who doesn't know him, the usual way is to go around the country with you, sell your face and name, and get the support of the powerful nobles. Reinhard, yes, that's right. Felt Summer. When Reinhard himself asked Shorty how to make effective use of Reinhard, Shorty listed the measures he could think of. However, What Reinhard said after that caught Shorty completely by surprise. Involuntarily, Shorty sputtered, "Huh?" and followed Reinhard's meaningful gaze. Shorty's gaze leads him to the person standing behind Shorty and Lululara. It was a young servant girl who met them at the nearest town and guided them to the Austria mansion. They took advantage of her hospitality and talked about this and that on the way to the mansion. What did Reinhard call this young girl with dazzlingly beautiful golden hair, black ribbon, strong-willed red eyes, and distinctive protruding fang from her mouth? Shorty, felt, ooh, he's confused. Ha ha, look at his face. The girl can't hold back her laughter as she points at Shorty, opening and closing his mouth, with a pucker and his eyes going blank. At this behavior, Lululara also looked at Shorty. Lululara, funny. Shorty, not at all. It's not funny, Shorty retorts loudly to Lululara's all too heartless remark. The young girl was laughing so hard that tears were welling up in the corners of her eyes. Then Reinhard sighs and says, when Shorty peeled his eyes away from Lululara's too heartless comment, the girl was startled. However, Reinhard called out to the girl again and again with Feltsummer. Reinhard, Feltsummer, I think it's time to stop the antics, please. Shorty Dono and Lululara-san will be exhausted if you go any further. Felt, all right. I thought I was starting to understand you a little better, but you're still nagging me, aren't cha? Reinhard, I think I've become more flexible. So I did not stop you from welcoming them. Felt, you had Flam and Grasses looking out for me. You're still stiff enough. The young girl responds to Reinhard's smile by sticking out her tongue. She is in a position to treat Reinhard with disrespect and still be respected. Above all, the name, which is repeated so many times that there is no mistaking it, is Shorty. It is an honor to meet you, Feltsummer. Felt, hair, thanks for the greeting, it's making my ears itch. Shorty, who managed to bite back his surprise and bowed, to which Felt responds by scratching her ear. At first glance, she appears to be just a simple town girl, but she is the fourth candidate for the royal selection. Compared to the simultaneous coverage, however, this is about as good as it gets. Lululara, here, Shorty, Lululara. As Shorty gasps in nervousness, Lululara unexpectedly presents Felt with a page from one of her notebooks. Felt takes it with a raised eyebrow and looks at the picture. Then, Felt, boo-ah-ha, ha. Look at this, Reinhard, this is. Ha, Reinhard cleared his throat as he peeked at the painting from behind, as Felt called out to him, gushing. Shorty's mouth was agape at the knight's response. Shorty, even so Reinhard? What did you give them, Lululara? Felt, ha. Felt laughing hysterically and Reinhard was unable to hold back his laughter. As Shorty's gaze wandered between the two and Lululara, Reinhard showed him the picture in question with a smile on his face. The person depicted was none other than Shorty. Shorty, dumbfounded with eyes wide open and mouth agape, gazed at Felt in dismay. Lululara, masterpiece. Shorty, yeah, thanks as always. Shorty shouted a desperate thank you to the boastful Lululara holding up her paintbrush.
Chapter 9.
Shorty, once again, thank you for making time for us today. Felt, you look like you're not happy. Well, I don't mind, since you made me laugh earlier. Shorty, thanks. Shorty's reply is one word as he is ushered into the reception room of the Austria mansion and receives his welcome. This is due to his difficulty handling Felt, stemming from the events that just happened. Of course, there is a sense of tension in dealing with a candidate for the royal selection, but it is much less oppressive than with the previous three. Felt, what's up, Shorty? No, it's nothing. Felt, how can you stare at someone's face like that and say it's nothing? Felt leaned forward and looked into Shorty's face, his cheeks tensing at the look she was giving him, and Shorty felt a faint pang of disappointment. It seems that if one is a candidate for the royal selection, he or she must have the qualities that distinguish them from other candidates, the qualities that make them stand at the pinnacle of the nation. For example, Felt picked up Shorty and Lululara dressed as a servant, but even if the same thing had been done by the other three, they would not have been able to completely fool them. Unfortunately, that is not how he feels about Felt. Considering her background, there was no opportunity for her to hone her qualifications. It would be fair to say that this was inevitable, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment. She is not yet ready to compete shoulder to shoulder with the previous three. This means that Felt and Amelia are almost certain to be eliminated, leaving Crush, Anastasia, and Priscilla to compete for the throne. So the interview with these last two people, including this moment, is like a game that has already been won. Felt, ain't it a bit early to be finished judging me, Shorty? Huh, Felt, nah, I know it when I see it. You look so obviously disappointed, Shorty falters as Felt's lips curl and her gaze sharpens. It is outrageous to undermine the credibility of a reporter with such a brazen attitude when the role of a reporter is to let the subject speak his or her mind. Shorty, HK. Shorty was about to apologize, but thought better of it. It would be pointless to mend things now. Rather, he will get on with the topic that has been broached. Shorty, did you develop that eye for people from living in the slums? Felt, hair? You're suddenly asking me a tough question. But I like it when people look at me that way. Shorty, thank you. Felt, so, did living in the slums make me stronger? Yeah, I guess it did. Felt was not offended that someone had so cavalierly stepped into her past. On the contrary, she seemed to accept Shorty's brazenness in a friendly way. With a hand on her chin, crossing her legs, Felt's gaze is directed out the window. The royal capital where she grew up is far, far away under the distant sky. Shorty looked over at Felt's face, thinking of her hometown, and saw the complex emotions in her red eyes. Shorty, you miss the capital and the slums. Felt, not at all. I don't even want to remember the slums. I hate 'em. Shorty, what? Felt, it's just you getting swept up in the mood. I don't miss 'em. When I'm away from the slums, is all a blessing in disguise. You guys gotta feel the same way. Felt scratched her head roughly, her lips forming a line. Shorty, hearing this, almost replied, that's true, but, before choking up, Shorty, I'm saying it now that Lululara and I are from the slums. Felt, it's ain't a big deal that I saw right through ya. You're right, living in the slums, I've got a habit of watching people. I've always been in the business of picking the pockets of the stupidest people. Shorty, Lululara and I are reporters, you know. Felt, that's why I'm being honest with Char. If I wanted to lie or say whatever I thought was appropriate, I wouldn't have agreed to the interview in the first place. You can write whatever you want. Shorty was feeling let down as Felt proudly confesses her past criminal behavior. Without a doubt, this fact reflects badly on Felt's royal selection influence. However, Shorty, who is also from the slums, does not seem to be willingly complicit in the crimes she committed. Driven by necessity, people do evil in order to survive. This is the future that Shorty and Lululara might have had, and in fact, even Felt has not continued to do so. How could he be proud of his work when he reveals the unavoidable circumstances of her crimes and stated that it was true? Shorty, I will write down the facts. I'll see if I can write an article about it later. Huh? My pen is, Felt, this? You're using some pretty nice stuff, aren't ya? I bet I could sell it for a pretty good price, right? Shorty, I thought you were retired. Felt, smiling, shows off Shorty's favorite pen, which Felt had somehow taken from his hand, and waved it in the air. Shorty was impressed and amazed by her brilliant handiwork. Reinhard, Felt Summer, Shorty Dono, and the others are in a tight spot. Then Reinhard interrupts, opening the entrance to the reception room. Reinhard, with a silver tray in his hand, brought in steaming cups, which he served to the table between Felt and Shorty. Reinhard, I think it's a virtue that you don't bother to hide it, Felt Summer, but you don't have to go out of your way to mention it in such a blatant way. Now, the pen, Felt, Tay, I guess the sermon is starting again. In general, Reinhard, this is an instruction from Rom Dono and Ezo. Felt, perhaps the added remark was effective, but then Felt's expression lost its composure. She then handed Shorty's pen to Reinhard in frustration. Reinhard laughs at the situation and turns around to return the pen to Shorty. Reinhard, here you go. And please do have some tea. It's something I'm learning. Shorty, no, not at all. Tea that is brewed by the Sword Saint. A very rare opportunity, yes. I would love to take it home and watch it evaporate. Lululara, stupid. Shorty, it's just a joke to lighten the mood. Lululara's one-liner in return brings Shorty back to his senses. After all, shouting is good for mental stability. Anyway, not wanting to yell too many times, Shorty cleared his throat softly. Shorty, I apologize for not waiting for the arrival of Sir Reinhard and starting the conversation early. Reinhard, oh, don't worry. I heard you. Shorty, was that so? Then that's a relief. What? Do you mean the conversation we had here, in the kitchen? Felt, oh, for crying out loud. If you take his comments seriously, we'll never get anywhere, and we'll never finish. I got other things to do later today. My interest in Reinhard's words is insatiable, but with Felt telling him he has plans for later, they cannot talk for too long. It was important to know Felt's intentions for the royal selection. Shorty, so, once again, what do you intend to do as king? Felt Summer, Felt, I'm going to destroy the invisible traditions of this country. Shorty, yes? Shorty stops writing in his notebook once he hears the answer that came back to him without any hesitation. What did Felt just declare that she would destroy? Shorty, this country's invisible traditions? Felt, all the unreasonable things that are taken for granted, all the things that I've seen, heard, talked about, and I don't like. The slums are one of those things I don't like. Shorty, Felt, 'cause it's the way it's supposed to be, and the way we are supposed to think. No wonder it's so hard for the poor to live in the slums. But I don't like the fact that those who are just born on top are forever winners and those who are just born on the bottom are forever losers. Before he can fully digest the meaning of the words, her opinions are spoken one after another from Felt's mouth. Shorty tries to get closer to Felt's true meaning as he digests them, little by little. If you cut out the superlatives, it is just an act of a young orphan girl, born and raised in the slums, who speaks of her bitter, jealous impulses toward those who were born and raised elsewhere. But Felt's eyes and tone of voice held a much greater, weightier, and adamant will. Felt, maybe you don't expect much from me anyway, did ya? Shorty, HK. Felt, hair. Words become cheap when you string 'em together properly, don't they? It was good, on my part, not to be so careless and misleading. In fact, there is hardly anyone who expects anything from me. That's right. I am a little girl who grew up in a poor neighborhood. I'm not as respectable as the other candidates. Felt cut him off, shook her head, and said, no, Felt, I'm sure it's better than the half-demon Nietzsche, but that's the kind of level I'm talking about. No one expects anything from me. If that's the case, then I got nothing to lose. Shorty, is that why you are challenging the invisible traditions? Felt, if someone doesn't punch him in the face, you can't even make him bleed. I'm going to beat them up first anyway. I'm the one who got that damn ticket. I won't know if anyone will follow after me until I try. Felt concludes so using the wild, brash, back-alley style, ridiculous and lacking in specifics. Felt's arguments were, however, painfully familiar to Shorty, who was also from the slums. Perhaps even to Lululara if she was listening. At the same time, Shorty stumbled over the potential Felt had. Before the interview, he felt disappointed and discouraged with Felt, who seemed to have no chance to win the selection. As usual, Felt did not have the dignity of a king that crush, and the others had. However, when it comes to whether she looks like a powerless girl with nothing at all, no. In Felt, he felt the determination of a person who is ready to take on the challenge and the will of a reformer who is willing to make change. Unlike the gifted who have already been perfected and born to shine, Felt's vessel is still in the process of taking shape. Perhaps the vessel will not be fired even after the royal selection is settled. But if her vessel is ever completed and seen by the public, Reinhard The day will come when something invisible will be destroyed. Can we have such expectations? Shorty, Sir Reinhard. Reinhard was the first to come to the same conclusion as Shorty did. Reinhard looked at Shorty and Lululara with his blue eyes, then back at Felt, who was sitting in front of him. Reinhard, in fact, Felt Summer is in the process of trying many things as we speak. For example, I am probably part of what she is trying to destroy. Lululara, you want to destroy Saint? Felt, it ain't that big of a deal. Reinhard, don't be weird. Reinhard, but I wanted to make it widely known that I was the first thing that Felt tried to destroy, so I didn't want to hide it if possible. Felt, scary. What are you talking about, man? Reinhard's smiling gaze is gentle, and Felt's voice is truly harsh as she responds. As far as it appears so far, they are two people who have formed a rather strange master and knight relationship. So far, the relationship between the royal selection candidate and the knight has been good, with minor differences, but each has one thing in common. However, one can sense a rift between Felt and Reinhard that cannot easily be described simply as a good relationship. Not sour or unfriendly, but tense, as if they were in the middle of a stormy wind. Reinhard, Shorty Dono, I take care of the garden and flower beds because I am obeying Felt Summer's orders. Shorty, W, well, is that true? Reinhard, yes. She told me to try growing some flowers. Unfortunately, I have the divine protection of horticulture, so it's not a difficult challenge as it is trial and error. Reinhard breaks off there and looks at his palm. He was wearing protective gloves and had been tending to his garden. His hands had been washed to serve the guests, and although there were no dirt stains on them, his eyes were filled with the clear signs of his work. Shorty saw the sword Saint Reinhard's gardening efforts as a waste of time and effort. Reinhard, I actually feel like I've changed my mind. Maybe the transformation of this world can come from the accumulation of small things like this. Felt, you're an arrogant bastard. I praised your flower beds for a minute, and you immediately got on my case. Reinhard, it is a pleasure to hear that, since it was given to me by Felt Summer. Reinhard replies without hesitation to Felt, who blurts it out while resting her chin on her hand. It was a surprising comment even for Shorty to hear, and Felt was no exception to that. She looked at Shorty with a bitter look on her face, as if regretting that she had seen his face. Shorty, you're staring at me. Felt, shit, I'm really not seeing the point of this interview. If it's just going to make me annoyed, there's a limit to how much I'm willing to lose. Reinhard, don't worry, the Dragon Nation newsletter has one of the highest circulation rates in the capital. I am sure that the strategy of Rom Dono and Ezo is correct. Felt, hey. Don't ever write what this idiot said earlier. Felt shows her sharp fangs and calls Reinhard an idiot. What does Felt think of Reinhard, that she would let the sword Saint tend to the garden, serve as a waiter, and then call him an idiot? Shorty, what does Felt Summer think about Sir Reinhard? Felt, oh? Were you half asleep? This is Reinhard. Shorty, Felt, it's nothing more, nothing less. He doesn't listen to me, but he talks a lot. He gives me a headache. Felt crosses her arms as she exhales loudly through her nose, and Reinhard, standing behind her, says nothing in response, only slightly relaxing the corners of his eyes. Shorty, noticing Reinhard's reaction, reflected on his own life and realized that he, too, had been corrupted by the invisible traditions described by Felt. He thought he understood the prejudices and preconceived notions that were prevalent in the kingdom, such as the differences in status between the aristocratic and impoverished districts, the categories of nobility, commoner, and destitute, and the prejudices and preconceptions that they created. However, as Shorty continues to interview candidates for the royal selection, he is continually reminded that he is neither smart nor well-informed. Finally, Felt, who also came from the slums, made the same realization. Shorty's and other people's illusions about Reinhard van Astria, the Sword Saint, is one of the things that Felt is trying to destroy because she doesn't like it. Shorty, Felt Summer, what do you think about where the royal selection is going? Felt's red eyes narrowed as she stared at Shorty, who had asked her a question. Straightening his back, Shorty met her gaze directly. Here, his initial disappointment in Felt was gone, and all that remained was a strange sense of anticipation. What in the world will this poor orphaned girl from the favelas show us in the future? Such is his hope. Shorty thought that this might have been the decisive push that made Reinhard choose Felt. Well, I think the rest of 'em are pretty good. When I first saw 'em at the castle, I didn't know what they were like 'cause I didn't know anything about 'em. Born and raised in the slums, it was not until Felt announced her participation in the royal election and decided to live in Astria Manor that she began to receive a decent education. Shorty remembers it too. In the beginning, he couldn't even read or write, and he couldn't even stand on the same stage without bridging the gap between what he knew and what he should have known. Felt has continued to fight through a series of frustrating experiences, but has not been corrupted by them. Felt, right now, that Duchess has got the upper hand, followed by the merchant. Even though they joined in Hunt in the Whale, it's going to be tough for the half-demon Nei-chan. I don't know about that woman in red, but, Shorty, Felt, I'm just as good, if not better, than her in terms of reputation. The future is bleak, and whether I can make up for this in 3 short years is my challenge. Shorty was impressed with the accurate analysis of her own situation. Her grasp of the state of the competition is proof she is not throwing the game away, and that she is determined to do everything in her power to win. However, the road ahead is a difficult one. That is undeniable, as she too realizes it. Shorty, have you decided on how you are going to fight? Felt, for the time being, I ain't gonna win by copying the others. I gotta do what only I can do. That's why, Shorty. So, Felt, in the meantime, I'm hitting up every single black market guy at Han. I've got a meeting with some of their higher-ups after this. Shorty, that's an unexpected answer, Shorty exclaimed to Felt, who laughed hysterically and gave an unexpected answer. Shorty's reaction was met with a ha 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 from Felt, while Reinhard, standing behind her, put his hand on his forehead. Shorty, however, is the one who wants to cover his face. One of the candidates for the royal selection is cozying up to the black market and wants to win the royal selection. Shorty, and it's too good to be true. No one is going to believe this. Even if Shorty showed it to Chief Morgan, he might think that he had fabricated the story. Surely, one would not expect such a big confession with so little thought put into it. Shorty. While Shorty is thinking, Lululara is silently brushing strokes in her notebook. Her interest never left Reinhard, and she has been making a number of news illustrations for Felt as well. At last, she has become aware of the importance of being a news illustrator, and has understood the rule that she should draw all of the subjects she is covering. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Felt's way of doing things suited Lululara's taste. Just as Shorty changed his perception of Felt, the same thing happened to Lululara. The fact that she painted a picture and the quality of the picture is proof of Felt's considerable talent, and then, Felt, so? What else do you want to know about why I'm in the royal selection? What I'm going to do? Shorty, I've been asking the others. What is your impression of the other candidates for the throne? Felt Summer, Felt, the other guys. I told you that earlier. I think they're great guys. This is Felt, who calmly completes her own analysis, which is not to be discounted. Perhaps for other candidates, she likely has an assessment that is worth listening to. Though she was not present at any of these events, she is no doubt also an excellent strategist who puts in the work. If possible, Shorty would like to talk to someone else in the Felt camp as well. Anyway, Felt scratched her cheek as she thought about it and said, "That's about right, Felt. I haven't talked to her much, but that Duchess is a tough one. When she saw me at the castle, she was the only one who didn't judge me. I was told that she was originally the favorite, but I ain't letting down my guard. Well, I guess that's not the only reason she was looking at me." Shorty, I see, Crush Summer is. What about Anastasia Summer and Priscilla Summer? Felt, the merchant. Anastasia has got a good eye for detail. I got in her debt the other day, so I'm not sure how that will sound. But I'm sure it was worth more than the price I paid. I trust and not to get greedy in their dealings. Also, that woman in red is there. Felt broke off her speech and wrinkled her nose in genuine displeasure. Felt, not about it being good or bad, just that I will fucking kick her ass. Shorty, that's incredibly personal. Priscilla Summer is such an extremely intense person. Felt, hair, I guess that's one way to put it. Besides, Felt held her tongue, and makes him wait slightly longer for the last person Amelia's evaluation. Tit is taking a long time for her to formulate an answer. However, unlike the one to Priscilla, there is no hostility there. It seems to be a different sentiment from the animosity toward the half-elf. Felt laughed at Shorty, who was waiting anxiously in front of her to see what it might be. Felt, that's the half-demon Nietzsche. You should go see her with your own eyes. You'll see more clearly than any of the others that the rumors ain't to be trusted. Shorty, what a letdown. Felt, well, I don't hate her. I owe Nei-chan a lot, you know. With her hands folded behind her head, Felt kept her opinion of Amelia to herself. At the very least, Felt made Shorty notice there was a possibility that she had been involved with Amelia. Shorty felt a sobering sense of purpose when Felt pointed out that he should go and see them in person. The Amelia camp, which from the beginning of this project had been considered the most challenging emotionally. Finally, the interview with the other royal selection candidates was over, leaving her as the last one, and then, Lululara, I drew it. As she said this, Lululara noisily tore another page out of her drawing book. Felt accepts the news painting again with an amused show me. She must have gotten a taste of the picture of Shorty from earlier. Felt's eyes lit up in anticipation, wondering what kind of laughs Shorty would be able to provide this time. Felt, Reinhard, this is. Felt frowned, and Reinhard, peering at the painting from behind, was amazed at the picture, and laughed. Shorty also sneaks a peek at it to see what kind of picture was painted, and is pleased with it. The picture depicted Felt slumped on the sofa with Reinhard behind her, with a soft expression on his face. A moment of their awkward master and knight relationship.
Chapter 10.
An idea and a little bit of inspiration led to a series of interviews with the candidates for the royal selection. These interviews, which have taken an immense toll on Shorty's body and mind, are now approaching the final chapter of the project. At last, the final candidate for the royal selection, and the person who is considered the biggest hurdle to this project, is challenged. Amelia is rumored to be the second coming of the Witch of Envy, the worst of the worlds. Disasters that nearly destroyed the world, and she is known as a witch who is not afraid to act hedonistic and wicked. Of course, Shorty is more than aware of the unreliability of preconceived notions and previous information. Even so, the rumors about the Witch of Envy are irresistible. Even Lululara, who has no interest in anything but painting, shudders at the mention of the name Witch of Envy. So the fear that has seeped into the royal people, or rather, into people around the world, is understandably well-founded. For this reason, she will be at an overwhelming disadvantage in the royal selection. So what sort of thoughts and objectives does she have in mind as she aims for the Lugunican throne? To find out, Shorty and Lululara went to the Mathers domain. My name is Natsuki Subaru, and I am the Thundering Gale, the unyielding guide. With a shout, he thrusts the fingers of his right hand into the sky and stands with his left hand on his hip. Shorty's eyes went blank as he was greeted by someone with short black hair and vicious eyes, not knowing where in the world he could have gotten his welcome customs. The fact that the mysterious name of the dark-haired boy was the same name as the person Shorty wanted to talk to did not seem to register at this moment. That is why Shorty's response to the name of the boy in front of him was delayed. It was a name that, as a news reporter living in this era, he should not have missed. Shorty, stunned, is at the stop of the hired dragon carriage. They were going to visit the industrial city of Kostyul, one of the 5 largest cities in the Kingdom of Lugunica, and the residence of Margrave Roswell L. Mathers was located close to the city. The plan was to go to Kostyul and interview Amelia there. Shorty's start was unexpectedly thwarted. Shorty, Natsuki Subaru Dono, you said right? Subaru, huh? Oh, yeah, No doubt I'm Natsuki Subaru. In case you were wondering, the two of you came to interview me, Amelia Tan. No, I was knighted, Amelia Summer, Shorty, I knew it. You're the one who helped defeat the white whale and sloth, aren't you, Subaru? Whoa, Shorty involuntarily fell forward, and the boy Subaru was forced to jerk back at the forward momentum. Shorty's excitement did not subside, puffing out his nose as he approached. Shorty, I've heard so much about you. I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions, Subaru. No, of course, we're going to have you do that, but this time we're going to talk about Amelia Tan's story rather than mine. Shorty, I've heard that you have crossed camps to ask for cooperation and have successfully defeated a great enemy. Where did you get that much trust and negotiating ability? Shorty, closing the distance with a snort and a curious look on his face, was hit on the back of the head. He looked to see that it was Lululara who had done it. Brandishing her notebook, she lowers the corner of her round eyes and shows Shorty her banged-up notebook. Shorty, that hurt. You used the corner. Lululara, too much trouble. Shorty's eyes fluttered at Lululara's unusual reprimand, and he realized what he had done and hurriedly turned his head forward. Then he saw Subaru smiling at him. Instantly, the heat rises quickly from his neck, his face becoming hot. Shorty, I'm terribly sorry. I'm so sorry. I completely forgot myself. Subaru, no problem. To be honest, I was a bit intimidated, but on the other hand, I could feel your enthusiasm. Shorty, can you forgive me? Oh, thank you so much. Natsuki. Shorty, apologizing flatly, was moved by Subaru's kind words. Then, as he was about to accept Subaru's hand, Shorty bent down deeply at the waist and you get away from Subaru immediately, I suppose. Shorty, why? A high-pitched voice from nearby, an invisible shockwave, and Shorty's body sailed lightly through the air as he was struck by it. Subaru, struck by the sight, turned around to see a small figure standing there. There is no room for letting one's guard down, in fact. Indeed, Subaru would not have enough lives if it were not for Betty, I suppose. Subaru, Biko, you, It seems you are so amazed and grateful that you are speechless. In fact, if you can't talk, at least express your gratitude for Betty through your actions and attitude, I suppose. As she says this, the girl in the dress with luxuriously curled hair outstretches her hands to the flustered Subaru. Subaru reaches out his trembling arms to her, and pinches her red cheeks. Gya. What are you doing? In fact, Subaru. Betty just saved your life and doesn't deserve to be treated like this, I suppose. Subaru, you idiot. It's true that my life is as unreliable as fluffy cotton wool, but I'm still brave this time. That's the two interview staff. What's that? In fact, with her cheeks pinched, the girl looks at Shorty, who was blown away past Subaru. Shorty, who was blown away helplessly, crashed into a hedge and was being pulled by Lululara by his outstretched leg. Subaru rushed up to him in a panic. Subaru, you all right, Shorty-san? Sorry. My Biko made a terrible mistake. Shorty, I'm fine. It's not uncommon for a Dragon Nation newsletter reporter to run head first into something. Subaru, it's going to make a great story. Anyway, here we go. Subaru pulls Shorty's body out of the hedge in place of the powerless Lululara. Shorty is covered in leaves, some of them tangled in his long bangs that hide his eyes. Subaru, hey, Biko, apologize for being so rash. I'm sorry, but this pipsqueak is at fault for being misleading, as well, I suppose. Subaru, don't go making up excuses. In front of Shorty, Subaru scolded the stubborn little girl. But when Shorty saw the increasingly stubborn girl turn her face away, he intervened, saying, well, it's okay, Shorty, don't worry about it. See, I'm fine. Subaru, no, I'm definitely going to make her apologize. Because this is an educational Experience. Come on, Biko, ? New goo ga goo goo. Betty will never apologize. In fact, Subaru is trying to get the girl to apologize, but the girl, who has her head squeezed, is resisting. It is a funny exchange, like that of a parent and child, but Shorty feels like he is missing someone, hesitant to interfere, and at a loss for what to do. ? Natsuki-san, Beatrice-chan, what are you doing in front of our guests? The deadlocked atmosphere was brought to an end by a soft voice filled with dismay. Subaru and the girl, who were engaged in a back-and-forth battle, turned around at the sound of his voice and changed their expressions with an O. Standing where they looked was a young man with distinctive grey hair and green attire. At the appearance of the calm-looking young man, the girl named Beatrice lowers her eyes. Subaru, ugh, it is not what it looks like, I suppose. There are unavoidable circumstances for this. ? Are those circumstances a good enough reason for both of you to leave our leafy guests alone? Beatrice, you're a prickly and unforgiving man, I suppose. Prumph. Beatrice turns away with a pouty look on her face after being candidly corrected. Subaru, patting her on the head, also looks disappointed. Shorty is impressed by the way he does it. As soon as the young man appeared, Subaru and Beatrice both became quiet. ? I'm sorry for the trouble that these two have caused. I will make sure to have a word with them. Shorty, well, thank you, and you are? ? My name is Otto Suwin. Real, I'm with the two people behind you. Shrugging his shoulders, the young man Otto looks a mixture of pride and disappointment, while Subaru and Beatrice sulk behind him, saying what is it? However, the intense tremor that hit Shorty did not make him aware of these two's circumstances. Shorty, oh, Otto Suwin Dono, is it? Otto, dash. Yes, that's me, but, Shorty, Saw, I'm so sorry. Otto tilts his head, and Shorty hurriedly kneels down on the spot. Shorty then pulled the sleeve of Lulu Lara, who was standing there in a daze, and made her kneel as well. Shorty, Lulu Lara, get on your knees. If he gets in a bad mood, he'll gnaw your head off. Otto, I don't bite, though. What sort of things did you hear about me? Shorty, the militant internal affairs officer who is wanted for threatening a powerful noble in his hometown of Pikutat, wiped out bandits nesting in Mount Gina, and burned down a Margrave's mansion to negotiate a pay raise. Otto, it's one thing to say those things, but isn't this too terrible? Otto, raising his voice, however, does not deny his reputation for them. In other words, he knew what he was talking about. It was information that Shorty thought was eyebrow-raising, until he had seen the real thing, but there is no doubt that he has managed to contain and completely tame Natsuki Subaru, who accomplished the defeat of the White Whale and Sloth. Shorty, oh, please don't kill me. Subaru, oi, Otto, you, no way. Otto, I'm not going to take it. Or rather, don't get carried away, Natsuki-san, and help me clear up the misunderstanding. This is getting out of hand. Subaru and Otto argued with each other, with the small and trembling Shorty in between them. Sighing at the sight of these three, Beatrice suddenly noticed Lulu Lara's hands as she crouched down. Lulu Lara, kneeling on the ground, was moving her paintbrush at a furious pace. Realizing that the object of her paintbrush is herself, Beatrice brushes away her own hair. Beatrice, at the very least, portray Betty in all of her splendor. In fact, Lulu Lara, draw, little one. Yes, she nodded in satisfaction at Lulu Lara's answer as she moved her paintbrush.
Chapter 11.
Although there was a stumbling block at the start, Subaru, once again, welcome, you too. Welcome. Leaving the dragon carriage stop, Subaru holds out his hand in a renewed attempt at a welcome. Contrary to the grandiosity of his reputation, Subaru treats him with a much more friendly attitude as he shook his hand. His relationship with Beatrice, who was always holding his hand, made no sense to Shorty at all. Subaru, well, I was so excited when I heard that someone had asked to do an interview. After all, image strategy. And public relations can make the difference between winning and losing. In an election campaign, Shorty, excited, image, Otto, oh, those are just some words used by Natsuki-san sometimes, you could call them Natsuki speak. He claims it's his native language, but it's Subaru, well, I mean my thoughts and feelings. You can just tune it out if you want to. Subaru, responding with a laugh, seems to have a very positive outlook on this interview, as evidenced by his welcoming attitude. Otto, the internal affairs officer, seems to agree, showing no hostility toward Shorty and Lululara. Shorty, but I didn't expect to be picked up by some of the most important people. Subaru, in fact, Amelia Tan herself wanted to come, but the rest of the camp stopped her, because they thought her sudden appearance would scare you two off. Shorty, it was you, wasn't it? As for Shorty, just the fact that Subaru, a knight of the candidates for the royal selection, came to pick him up was enough of a surprise, but he couldn't help but be surprised when he was told that it could have been more than that. Subaru, oh, you're still freaked out. Amelia Tan is not a scary person to deal with at all. Beatrice, even so, it is human nature to bow down to authority and position, I suppose. Both Subaru and Amelia are still lacking in that area of thinking. In fact, Otto, I agree with you on that. I hope this time they will learn from this. Otto rubbed his brow with his fingers and muttered sadly. In addition to what Otto has to say about this, Subaru and Beatrice's words and actions are also noteworthy. It may be natural for Otto to say, since he is a member of the camp, but, Shorty, in the eyes of you three, what kind of a person is Amelia Summer? The question was, in some ways, quite insincere. It cut too close to the heart of the matter to be casually thrown out in the middle of being escorted, as a bit of banter before reaching the mansion. Shorty held his breath, expecting a stern response from the three silent parties, as he had expected. Subaru, well, she's an angel. Cute and hard-working, an angel to say the least. Shorty, however, after a moment of thought, Subaru's answer was this: Beatrice, Subaru. The little reporter is dumbfounded. I suppose. He is not saying what you think he is. In fact, Subaru, no, I thought that is what he meant. Then what would Biko say? Beatrice, it's obvious, I suppose. Amelia is a dimwit with bottomless optimism. In fact, Subaru, isn't Amelia Tan a little too out of touch in Biko's mind? Beatrice pulls on Subaru's sleeve, her opinion also not in line with Amelia's earlier publicity. Shorty was puzzled by this point, and Otto scratched his cheek with his finger with an R. Otto, I understand the purpose of your question, Shorty-san. In general, I'm aware of how Amelia Summer is regarded by the public. Shorty, Please don't be angry, Otto, I'm not angry, though. Anyway. Many of the previous perceptions are simply untrue. This is an opportunity for you to show that Otto, though not as aggressive as Subaru, shared Subaru's expectations for this interview, too, which Subaru nodded his head and said, That's right, Subaru, we have to improve her image in order for people to understand the real Amelia Tan. So, please write a good article, Shorty-san.
Shorty, I will only report what I see with my own eyes and hear with my own ears.
Even if I am threatened by the militant internal affairs officer, I will never be deterred. Otto, I'm not going to threaten you. Ugh. I wonder what my reputation will be like by the time the royal selection is over. Beatrice, don't waste your time thinking about such pointless things, I suppose. Beatrice explains the impermanence of the world to Otto, who laments it. As Shorty watched these exchanges, there was something that he sensed strongly from all three. That is, all three have a favorable impression of Amelia and are dissatisfied with her current situation. It was a rebellion against the environment that surrounded her, a half-elf with silver hair and amethyst eyes, the anger they feel, if it is justified. Shorty, the real Amelia Summer, the difference between the previous rumors and reality. Shorty has never been more painfully aware of it in this project. There was a radical difference in impressions of Crush, Anastasia, Priscilla, and Felt. So, could the same thing happen with Amelia? The more he thought about it, and the more anxiety and anticipation he felt, the more he thought, Shorty, I can't wait to meet you in person. Lululara, what? You scared me. Shorty's muttering, his fists clenched, reached only Lululara, who had known Shorty for a long time. What did she see in Shorty's muttering? As soon as she started moving her paintbrush, there was no doubt that Lululara's interest was piqued. So, following the lead of Subaru and the others, Shorty and Lululara headed for Margrave's mansion, where Amelia was waiting for them. However, on the way there, they found themselves in the middle of a strange situation. Ooh? Ya bastards came to the wrong place, didn't ya? Suddenly, a wild voice sounded, and a shadowy figure came running out of the grass with great vigor. It was a fierce-looking figure with golden hair and sharp fangs bared. Shorty's eyes widened at the sudden appearance and gasped, Subaru, whoa, a bandit, Beatrice, this is a terrible thing that's happened, in fact. The end of the world, I suppose. Subaru, what? On a road near a big city like this, Shorty is momentarily left speechless by the situation, while Subaru and Beatrice, their faces turning pale, embrace each other and slump into a heap on the spot. Seeing Subaru and the others, the blonde bandit sniffed in a good mood and said, Hey, bandit, well, it looks like you know what's going on. If you don't want to get hurt, you're going to have to be a good boy and give me what I want. Shorty, hey, please spare my life, please spare my life. Looking down at the trembling Subaru and the others, the boy licked his lips with cruelty. Quickly protecting Lululara behind him, Shorty looked back at Otto for help. It was then, that's enough, scoundrel. The air around them was completely taken away by the unexpected sound of a voice like a silver bell. Shorty's eyes widened to see what was going on, and the bandit turned to them with a grim, ooh. Then there was a rustling sound, and a new figure appeared, a beautiful girl with shimmering silver hair, jewel-like amethyst eyes, and an appearance that is unforgettable. Shorty forgot to breathe at the sight of her. The girl, under the gaze of everyone, pointed a finger at the bandit with authority. Girl, I'm not going to overlook any more of your misdeeds. Get away from Subaru and the others, bandit, ha. Don't tell me what to do, who the hell are ya? No way, girl, yeah, that's right, no I am, bandit, dash. The girl's bravado quickly faded in front of the bandit, who was bracing himself. She stiffens, in her finger-pointing posture, furrowing her shapely brow, and then, surreptitiously approached Subaru. Girl, Subaru, what was the next word? Subaru, that's Amelia, the next candidate for the throne of the kingdom of Lugnica. Amelia Tan. Amelia, oh, right. Yeah, okay. After exchanging a few words with Subaru, still slumped in a heap, the girl returned to her original position as if she had regained her composure, coughed lightly, and then continued, Amelia, I am Amelia, the next candidate for the throne of Lugnica. In the name of the moon, I'll punish you, bandit. Oh shit. It's Amelia Summer, a candidate for Tar Royal selection. This ain't gonna happen. Upon hearing the girl's words, the fearful bandit prostrated himself on the spot. Seeing this, the girl nodded deeply and looked at the stunned Shorty and the others. Amelia, well, I guess that's that. Are any of you hurt? The smiling girl no, if what she had just said was true, there was no doubt as to her true identity. Above all, her identity was clear from her distinctive appearance. Shorty, Amelia Summer, is it? Amelia, dash. Yes, that's right. I just so happen to be really close by, the girl Amelia answered with her chest puffed out. However, right after she answered, Amelia crouched down, holding her stomach with an uck. Immediately rushing to Amelia, Subaru shouted, Amelia Tan. Subaru, what's wrong all of a sudden? Are you okay? Amelia, no, I'm fine. It's just that when I lied to them my stomach suddenly started hurting. Beatrice, this is surely because he made you do something you aren't suited for. In fact, Subaru, enough. Subaru, don't give up, stupid. We've made it this far. We have to finish it. Subaru and Beatrice were in a state of panic around Amelia. Shorty seriously wondered how he should react since everything was being overheard. But the best solution to Shorty's problem was, Otto, no, there is nothing good about this mess, this is a farce. It was Otto Suwin, who couldn't resist shouting. He quickly approached Subaru, much to the amazement of everyone there. Otto, Natsuki-san. I thought you rejected this plan. Why are you insisting on continuing it? Subaru, it was too good to throw away. We'll be saved by a dashing Amelia Tan after we get tangled up with some thugs. It's a reenactment of how Amelia and I met. Amelia, hey, Subaru. I don't remember saving you like this. Otto, it's Amelia Summer who is in this condition. Can you please stop talking about your dreams? Subaru, it's true that meeting Amelia Tan was a dream come true, but that wasn't a dream. Otto grabs Subaru by the collar and shakes him, whereupon Amelia interjects from beside them. While Shorty was still left behind, one thing became clear. Amelia's character was the one that Subaru and the others had told him about just prior to the meeting. Amelia, both of you, stop fighting. Otto-kun, Subaru has thought hard about this, so don't be too angry with him. While Otto is shaking his Subaru back and forth, Amelia is yelling at him, and from her earnest appearance, she does not give the slightest impression of the cold and cruel incarnation of a witch. She gave the impression of an ordinary girl at the mercy of the events in front of her. Bandit, yo, Beatrice. Any chance this bein' a mistake? Beatrice, it goes without saying, I suppose. Originally, it was a foolhardy plan to get Amelia to lie. In fact, as expected, the plan is a mess, I suppose. Bandit, damn, you mean overly elaborate Gazorina? The bandit, or rather, the boy playing the role of a bandit, raises his lowered head, scratches his blonde hair, grumbling, and then, next to him, Beatrice sighs, crossing her short arms. Shorty, you're all from the same camp. Right, Garfield? There ain't no point in hiding it now, is there? That's right. My amazing self is Garfield. Tinsel, the strongest of shields. Remember, I ain't no bandit. The boy Garfield clicks his sharp fangs and proudly announces his name. His performance as a thug was quite impressive, but because he exuded an extraordinary spirit, Shorty was relieved to know that his impression was not mistaken. Anyway, these were all part of Amelia and company's plan to create a grand impression. Lululara, farce, Shorty, Lululara. I was about to say it too, and then I stopped. Shorty turned to look at Lululara, alarmed by her frankness. Shorty then looked back at Amelia, and the others, who had just settled their argument. Subaru, his clothes in disarray, was thrown to the ground, where Amelia offered to help him to her lap. With that in the background, Otto gave a sidelong glance to them, then bowed his head to Shorty while repositioning his hat. Otto, well, sorry you had to see something so unsightly. As for this, Shorty, no. I mean, I didn't see anything. Well, I can't say that. I think I have to respond in some way. Otto, that's true. Well, the only thing I can say is that I'm sorry for the confusion it has caused you. For the umpteenth time today, Otto laments greatly as he rubs his fingers across his brow. Even though they have only been acquainted with each other for a short time, Shorty could guess what his position in this camp is like. The various saga-like rumors surrounding him may have been spread while he was speaking up for those around him. Otto, even so, it's true that most of the wanted people and the bandits have been crushed. Garfield, Otto bro, the captain and Amelia Summer are sorry for what happened. Ain't it 'bout time you stopped complainin'? Otto, it's self-serving. To begin with, Garfield, you and everyone who went along with this is going to get a lecture from me later. Garfield, talk 'bout poking the snake. Garfield gritted his teeth and regretted his gaffe, suggesting that Otto's position in the camp is that of a chaperone and advisor, and while Shorty is still solidifying these impressions, the one impression that has yet to be solidified is that of Amelia. I'm sorry for all the confusion. No one meant any harm. Shorty, yes. I understand that, I think. Amelia, Really? I'm so glad. I'm really relieved. It was Amelia who smiled and patted her chest as if relieved. It was only a few minutes ago that he decided that he would like to meet and talk with her in person. Shorty's mind was stirred up by the sight of the real thing, the witch resurrected in the modern age who froze the forests of her homeland and brought snow to the Mathers territory on a whim. What about the woman with such a reputation? Beatrice, it's just as what was said before. In fact, you're a bottomless dunce, I suppose. Beatrice, who had come up next to Shorty, said so with a pout on her lips. In his current opinion, there were more missing factors than in the previous personal evaluation, but Shorty couldn't dispute them either. Amelia, Amelia tilts her head curiously, even though she is being talked about herself. This was especially true when Shorty was surrounded by the carefree atmosphere she exuded.
Chapter 12.
Dear guest, please don't be mistaken. As for that little farce, Ram and the others told them not to do it. So it would have been entirely up to Amelia Summer and Barusu. The woman who brought the tea was a maid, who reminded him in a terribly cold tone. Shorty and Lulu Lara were once again led to the mansion where Amelia was staying after the farce on the road was over, and as they were ushered into the parlor, a pink-haired maid brought them tea. The maid's first words were to Shorty and Lulu Lara, without so much as a greeting. Shorty was so intimidating that he could not respond to her, and the fact that Lulu Lara's paintbrush never stopped painting the maid was proof that she was more than just an ordinary servant in the mansion. Shorty, that was a very shrewd maid. I thought the maid there was a lot more like a witch than Amelia Summer was because of that tone of voice. Lulu Lara, drew it. Shorty, you drew it? That's great, you're so fast. Very intimidating. The picture of the maid who left the room clearly captured not only the neatness of her appearance, but also her oppressiveness, which is impossible to describe in writing. Although it is unlikely to be used as a news illustration this time around, it is a work of pure quality that should be preserved. Shorty and Lulu Lara were enjoying the hospitality. Amelia, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Subaru had to go change clothes. Amelia appears in the parlor. She is accompanied by Subaru, who has changed clothes behind her, and Beatrice, who is holding his hand. It is an ideal combination of a candidate for the royal selection and her knight side by side. Shorty, but Beatrice Summer is Beatrice. Yes, Betty and Subaru are one and the same. In fact, our relationship is a special one that no one can sever, I suppose. Subaru, actually, yes. No joke, if I'm too far away from Biko, I'll pop and die. Oh, and please keep this off the record. It might be my Shorty. Oh, you mean? Don't talk about it. I understand. Beatrice is immediately positioned on Subaru's lap on the sofa. Amelia, seated next to Subaru, does not say anything about the two of them, so it seems that everything is normal. Shorty, for his part, said nothing as if it were business as usual. Subaru's tone was light, but it was obvious from listening that it was not a lie or a joke of any kind. Shorty accepts it, the stage is set, and he bows his head to Amelia and the others once again. Shorty, once again, thank you for taking the time to interview with us. We have already spoken to the other royal selection candidates and have asked them about their positions. Amelia, yes, I've heard. So I guess that means we're the last ones, right? Shorty, yes. I don't want to be misunderstood, I didn't have any ulterior motives for the order of the interviews. Shorty's words were interrupted as he tried to explain what had happened so far. That was because he was taken aback by the scene in front of him. Amelia, first of all, thank you for coming to hear what I have to say. I'm also happy to talk to someone who is willing to listen to me properly, so thank you. Shorty, that said, Amelia, sitting opposite him, bowed deeply. Next to her, Subaru, rather than admonishing Amelia, bowed his head in the same manner. The other royal selection candidates were relatively forthcoming and gracious in accepting Shorty's interview. However, this was the first time someone had bowed to them with gratitude. This is not so much a testament to Amelia's modesty and courteousness as it's indicative of their poor circumstances and deep preconceived notions of their situation. In this way, Being able to get honest interviews is something exceptional for Amelia. Shorty, Amelia Summer. Amelia, yes, what is it? Shorty, Amelia Summer, why did you decide to join the royal selection? Shorty found himself asking the question as if it had just slipped out of his mouth. It may have been too straightforward and rude of a question to ask Amelia, who had accepted the interview just prior to it, with great politeness and courtesy. Shorty's intent in asking her that question is obvious without even thinking about it. Amelia's situation, as a half-elf, is just awful. Even though she is a candidate for the royal selection, it is abundantly clear to anyone who sees her that she is doomed to defeat. In fact, even for an interview with such a young, unproven young man, they had to bow down to him in a polite manner. The odds were slim to none. So why did she take on the challenge? Shorty's question surely must reveal her intentions. However, Amelia, I didn't give it much thought in the beginning, Amelia replied, not angrily, and even had a smile on her face. In front of the breathless Shorty, Amelia gently puts her hand on her chest and narrows her amethyst eyes as if thinking back on the beginning she had just uttered. Amelia, I was living in the forest and Roswell came for me. That was the first time I heard about the royal selection and that the king was gone. At first, I didn't know if I could handle such a big responsibility. I just accepted it for a selfish reason. Shorty, for selfish reasons? Amelia, it was kind of about family. It wasn't at all about the kingdom or for the people around me, sticking out her tongue a little in a bashful way. Amelia's overly honest answer clearly would have a negative impact on her chances in the royal selection if anyone heard it. There are already too many things to scrutinize with her, but that would be a short-sighted way of looking at things. Her current tone of voice goes beyond that. Shorty, in other words, you think differently now? Amelia, yes. Subaru and Beatrice, beside me, as well as Ram and Otto-kun, Garfield and Frederica, Petra-chan, Yazoo-san, and Roswell. These are the people who expect me to be strong and push me forward even if I'm unreliable. As she answered, Amelia moved her fingers on her chest. Only then did Shorty realize that what Amelia was touching was the crystalline stone that hung from her neck. The crystalline stone is cracked and has lost its light. Touching it lovingly, she said, Amelia, everyone has been good to me, I've learned a lot in my own way, and I realize it's a tough position to be in, as you Shorty-kun and the others are concerned about. But, Shorty, Amelia, but I don't want to give up. I want to do my best so that people can see exactly how I was born, how I was raised, and how I think. Shorty, Amelia, I don't want someone else to be told what they can or can't do or what they can't be, because of me or anybody else besides them. That's what I think now. Amelia said this as her amethyst eyes looked straight at Shorty. This determination, spoken in faltering words by Amelia, struck a chord in Shorty's mind. At the same time, Shorty was ashamed of his own prejudice. Despite his desire to be as impartial and open-minded as possible, Shorty was still stuck in his rigid thinking. As a half-elf with silver hair and amethyst eyes, Amelia must have struggled with more prejudice, preconceptions, and unbelievable obstacles than Shorty could ever imagine. Amelia, however, does not bemoan her situation unnecessarily. Instead, she explains it plainly. This simple explanation was her reason to move forward. She is fighting on the side of those who are subjected to unjustified discrimination and suffering the same fate as herself. There are plenty of other ways for people to cast people into categories and look down on them. One does not simply have to possess the same characteristics as the Witch of Envy who once nearly destroyed the world. Those born in a bad area, with criminal parents, and those simply born poor can easily be branded as weak, and people can be surprisingly cruel to the weak. Shorty, who grew up in the slums, knew all about that too well. Shorty, so, Amelia Summer, are you saying that you would save us? It was an improper question from Shorty on behalf of the weak. Shorty, until a moment ago, was unrelated to Amelia's efforts in the royal selection, is shamelessly trying to be the first to run up the flag of salvation that she holds aloft. What if Amelia had held out her chest and affirmed it? In any case, it is impossible to know the answer in this case. Because, Amelia, but since I can't promise that I could save anyone, I can't promise something so big as that, Shorty. Amelia, if two people want something, it would be nice if it's something they can share, but if it's not, then only one of them can have it, right? I can't help them both, Shorty, then how are we supposed to be saved? Amelia, I absolutely can't help you. But, I think it's strange that you say you want help, since you can't get involved with the competition. So I won't let that happen, Shorty. Amelia, yes, you're right. Let's leave the possibilities open. To everyone, fair and square. Amelia nodded as if to confirm Shorty's clinging words. Once the words were sorted out in her mind and spoken aloud, she did not try to take them back, but rather gave a straight answer to Shorty's question. Shorty, in response, quietly rewrote his impression of Amelia further. And next to Amelia, who nodded her head, Subaru, Amelia Tan, you're doing great. Beatrice, nah. Subaru. Don't wipe your tears with the collar of Betty's dress. In fact, Subaru, it's not tears I wiped, you idiot, it's snot. Beatrice, that's even worse, I suppose. Beatrice headbutted Subaru, who wiped his eyes and nose with her dress. Amelia's knight and his escort ruined the mood, but just as well. Since Shorty heard Amelia's, he wanted to hear something from her knight. Shorty, Natsuki Subaru Dono, why did you become Amelia Summer's knight? Is it because you share Amelia Summer's current beliefs? Subaru, me? When I look back on how it all started, it was an ulterior motive. Shorty, you, ulterior motive? Subaru replied with a raised finger and without a hint of regret. Shorty rounded his eyes at the unexpected answer, and Beatrice shook her head, but Beatrice did not even correct or silence Subaru's words. Subaru, I caught a glimpse of Amelia Tan on the street, and I fell head over heels for her. And I was running around with all my heart to help her. Shorty, so, you are in the position you are in now? But, Subaru Dono, you defeated the white whale and sloth, didn't you? Subaru, that was part of it too, trying to act cool for the girl I like. Subaru scratches his cheek with his finger and smiles shyly. There was no sense of deception, and there was no hint of a joke. In other words, the reason Subaru has become a knight and has achieved historical accomplishments over and over again is that he has fallen for Amelia. Shorty, weren't you at all surprised by Amelia's appearance? Subaru, no, I was surprised by how cute she was. I'm still surprised when I see her in the morning or when I see her without being mentally prepared for it. Amelia, geez, you're joking around like that again. Amelia reached out with her hand and lightly tugged on Subaru's ear. Amelia's cheeks flushed slightly at Subaru's pained ouch. Amelia, now that's a joke, please don't write about it in the article. Subaru, you get carried away so easily. Subaru, I feel like it should be written in the sense that it's meant to be a check on a love rival. No, this time, however, the goal is to improve Amelia Tan's image, so isn't it good that she's flirting with me? Amelia, I'm not flirting. Also, I don't think I ever saved you, Subaru. Subaru, if I go into detail about that, my heart would creak. Amelia pouted her lips as Subaru defended himself with his ear pinched. Beatrice, who was sitting on Subaru's lap, watched the exchange between the two of them with a look of exasperation on her face. In contrast to the poisonous atmosphere, Shorty was overcome with a sense of shock. At the same time, Shorty clenched his fists tighter in frustration. On one hand, he was glad to hear Amelia's story here and now, but he also thought, why was he the one here? Shorty. Amelia earnestly spoke about her intentions, and her words certainly struck Shorty's heart. Without exaggeration, he could nod his head and say that it is a wonderful determination, thought, and resolve. However, this impression was only felt by Shorty, who directly spoke with Amelia and experienced her voice and eyes with his own body. It is an extraordinary task to bring the same thing to the readers of the Dragon Nation newsletter, and it is not Amelia's fault, but Shorty's insufficient ability to do so. If Shorty's writing was so well written that he could convey what he saw with his own eyes to all who read his articles, he would not have to suffer this agony. Unfortunately, Shorty's current writing is not that good. Other than Shorty, it might have been possible for Editor-in-Chief Morgan, when he was still on the job, for that matter, because of his own shortcomings, he is unable to convey the information properly. This is the most dreadful situation for a reporter. It is the very situation that will determine a journalist's future. If so, what could Shorty Megan do? Aware of his own inadequacies, the Dragon Nation newsletter reporter still had the truth that he needed to convey before his eyes, and what was he going to do? Shorty, who was at a crossroads in his life, looked at Lululara beside him, who was putting her heart and soul into her paintbrush, as if seeking salvation. As usual, Lululara continues to paint the news paintings without regard for his reporting. That was the way she approached her work, and Shorty did not expect any support or comfort from her. But Lululara is serious, continuing to confront the scene in front of her and keep her paintbrush moving. Shorty gulps as he looks across at that vividly illustrated news painting. Then, on impulse, he snatched the drawing book from Lululara's lap. Lululara, HK, Shorty, sorry, Lululara. Let me see. Lululara was suddenly shocked as if half of her body had been torn off, clutching her forehead. Angrily, Shorty looked over the dozen or so drawings that had been made since this interview began, or rather, since he had met Subaru and the others at the station. Shorty looked at each of the drawings and muttered, "Ah, I knew it." Suddenly, Lululara was shocked as if she had been stripped of her other half. While holding her bitingly angry forehead, Shorty looked over the dozen or so pictures that had been drawn since the beginning of this interview, or rather, since he had encountered Subaru and the others at the station. When Shorty looked at each of the pictures on there, he muttered, "Yeah, I knew it." Shorty, this expression on Amelia Summer's face, picking up one of the press paintings, Shorty nodded his head as he lowered the corners of his eyes. Then, with a sudden movement of his body, he turns to Lululara, who is still trying to retrieve her equipment, and embraces her petite body in front of him. Picking up one of the press pictures, Shorty nodded, lowering the corners of his eyes. He then stretched out his arms and turned to Lululara, who was retrieving her work tools, and hugged her petite body from the front. Lululara, why, Shorty, Lululara, thank you, thank you. Thanks to you. Thanks to you, I've seen the light. I'm no good. After all, without you, I would be completely and utterly useless. Shorty thanked Lululara, her eyes wide and frozen, in front of him. Thanks to her, a breakthrough was made. Although he still cursed his own lack of ability in many ways, he thanked the heavens that he had a partner in Lululara. Shorty Megan finally figured out what he should do as a reporter. Shorty, Amelia Summer, Subaru Dono. Please, tell me a lot about you two. No, not only about you two, but about everyone. Amelia, you mean us? Not about royal selection? Subaru as well as Beatrice, who was sitting on his lap, tilted their heads in the same manner, and Shorty could not help but smile at their smiling faces. Shorty nodded vigorously. Shorty understood Amelia's ideals and beliefs that she stood for, so now Shorty just needed to make sure that people other than himself understood that. Shorty, first of all, please let me fall in love with all of you.
Chapter 13.
Shorty. Shorty. Is Shorty Megan here? A thunderous voice and the sound of heavy footsteps, and the door to the office was violently thrown open. Instantly, the documents in the room were whipped up by the wind, and Shorty, who had been drowning in them, sprang to his feet. He jumped up, looked around, and looked up to see a tall, eagle-nosed figure standing at the doorway. Shorty, wow, Editor-in-Chief Morgan. Yes. Shorty Megan, I'm right here, I'm here, I'm awake. Morgan, yes, that's right, Morgan France, Editor-in-Chief of the Dragon Nation newsletter, and you idiot. Of course, you're awake. The starting bell has rung. We're at work, Shorty. My apologies, because of the height difference, Shorty shouted out above him, holding his hat to his head. In his mind, He hurriedly chases away the drowsiness and tries to organize the work he has to do today. Shorty, huh? My apologies. I was just trying to figure out what I'm covering today. Morgan, what's the matter, Shorty? Don't you know what you're doing, Shorty? I'm sorry. What was I supposed to be covering today? Morgan, you idiot. Your job today is to rest. After any big job, you need to rest. Because, Morgan thrusts something into Shorty's face as his eyes go blank. Shorty's nose was suddenly pushed and he fell back, and something popped into his vision. Shorty, this is, Morgan, of course, it's a copy of the Dragon Nation newsletter. And more importantly, it's an article. What's in it, Shorty? My article on the royal selection, quickly snatching the Dragon Nation newsletter from Morgan's hand. Shorty's eyes light up, he gasps, and falls to his knees. Morgan, you have been busy, Shorty Megan. Shorty, because. Finally, my article is, Morgan, well, don't let that get you down. Shorty Megan. The motto of the Dragon Nation newsletter is, Shorty, it will not be published unless it is an article that makes your heart tremble. Shorty responded to the red eagle-nosed Morgan's words with a conditioned reflex. He even stood up straight, straightening his back. In response to Shorty's reaction, Morgan stroked his eagle nose and nodded generously. Morgan, it was a good article, Shorty. Oh, Morgan, while touching on the assertions of each of the royal selection candidates, it focuses on the personalities of these women, something that has not been explored in depth before, is a novelty. It may not be enough for those who want to carefully follow the developments in the royal selection, but, cutting off there, Morgan clapped the frozen Shorty forcefully on the shoulder. Morgan, even those readers will be stunned by the last sentence. Stay tuned for more information on the royal selection candidates in the next issue. So you are going to continue, Shorty? Why, yes, that's the plan. No, I mean, with the chief's permission. Here, Morgan, you idiot. Don't be so wishy-washy. Who can possibly stand in the way of this? Shorty's small frame was knocked back easily by Morgan's shoulder and plunged into a pile of documents. But Morgan was so emotionally energized that he didn't bat an eye. Morgan, good one, Shorty, you've earned your share at the table. In fact, I have received polite thank you letters from the royal selection candidates. I'll leave it to you to continue to interview these ladies, Shorty. Oh, thank you. But, Editor-in-Chief, this interview is, Morgan. Yes, I know what you mean. I'll leave it to you and Lulu Lara. After correcting his previous statement, Morgan takes the article to the wall of the room as if to slam it into place. Then he takes another look at the article, then turns his gaze to the corner of the room. Morgan, nice news paintings. I knew I was right to pick you guys up. With that, Editor-in-Chief Morgan leaves the room with his big feet making loud footsteps. He has an impressive personality, like a storm, and is truly a man of dignity befitting the leader of a group of news reporters. Shorty, oh man, you're no match for me. Oh, Lulu Lara, thank you, Lulu Lara, good one. Lulu Lara struggles to pull Shorty out of the pile of papers, but manages to pull him out. Then, they crawled out of the pile and looked up at the article on the wall, Shorty's coverage of what he observed and heard during his visit to the 5 royal selection candidates. It features a selection of Lulu Lara's press drawings, a softly smiling crush, Anastasia and Priscilla side by side, and Felt with the Sword Saint is an ambitious work of art. But Shorty's favorite is, Lulu Lara had a good response. Shorty, I see. Yeah, I guess so. I'm glad it did. Shorty smiles proudly at Lulu Lara's words as they line up next to each other. The picture that received the greatest response was a group painting of Amelia, Subaru, and the people from her camp who had gathered together. Shorty could not tell the value of the painting, but he could tell that it was a priceless masterpiece. That's how good a piece this was, Lulu Lara. And this, Shorty, that's because I wasn't good enough, Lulu Lara? Shorty, My writing skills were not enough to convey Amelia Summer's determination, resolve, and everything she wanted to say. There were too many obstacles in the reader's mind to accept it, preconceptions, prejudices, and many other things that have been interfering so far in Amelia's life are going to negatively affect not only the woman herself, but even the writings that talk about her. Sadly, Shorty's writing did not have the necessary power to dispel that, so Shorty thought. How can we get rid of those obstacles, Shorty? That whole farce was really bad. But I was able to get that thing off my back, Lululara, the farce. Shorty, I took that one seriously. I thought that was the starting point. That Amelia Summer was someone completely different from the Witch of Envy, Lululara. Shorty's prejudice against Amelia as being similar to the Witch of Envy was first shattered by the poor farce shown on the road. The camp discussed and designed that poorly conceived farce to dispel the preconceived notions that went around about Amelia, but that was the point. Amelia takes these things very seriously. It is the straightforward and honest Amelia who needs to be known by the many people of the kingdom who remain unaffiliated with the royal selection. Amelia, seeking fairness, doesn't fully embrace and affirm her claims, preconceptions and prejudices. Such things are sometimes useful. There should be as much value in not letting them cloud your judgment as there is in letting them mislead you. Therefore, Shorty was not taking Amelia's side entirely. However, Shorty's journalistic answer is to appeal to her impartiality, saying that her arguments are worth listening to as well. To do this, the first step is to make sure that Amelia is someone other than Witch of Envy, Shorty. So this article was oriented toward touching on the goals of the candidates and their personalities. Of course, I'll dig deeper in future follow-up coverage. Lululara, gonna do it? Shorty, yeah, that's right. Aren't you glad, Lululara? You have all these people who are good art subjects. Shorty shrugged his shoulders, and Lululara fell silent with a blank expression. Shorty smiled, seeing a hint of passion in her emotionless face. They've known each other for a long time. For more than 10 years together, since the slums. Without Lululara, Shorty would not have become a reporter for Dragon Nation newsletter. He would have lived a much poorer life, or he would have died long ago. It was an unremarkable white stone wall, and Lululara had painted a large painting on the wall. The power of the painting enchanted him, and he was driven by a sense of duty to not let her end up here. Perhaps it was a similar passion to that of Subaru, who struggled for the sake of love. Thus, when it comes to reporters, there are too many things in the world that lit a fire inside Shorty and would be a waste if he just ran around. That's why, Shorty, still we have a long way to go, so let's keep working together in the future, Lululara. Lululara, can't be helped. Shorty, yes, it can't be helped. Without you, I would still be a novice reporter. Shorty smiled at Lululara, who slumped her shoulders as Shorty repositioned his hat. Yes, this is just the beginning. Fortunately, it was easy for them to apply for follow-up interviews with the royal selection candidates because of the good reception to their article this time around. In particular, they received a positive response from the Amelia camp. One of the most important reasons was that Amelia's knight, Subaru, had recognized the value of the Dragon Nation newsletter. As for him, he was very involved in the article on Amelia this time around. This is true of his many historic achievements, but most of all, Shorty, I didn't think there would be this much of a response to the Lalimansa. Lululara, think, mystery. Shorty, why, you don't think they're mad at me, do you? All of the knights who were with the candidates for the royal selection all carry titles along with their spectacular achievements. Therefore, after much thought and consideration, he decided that Subaru should also be provided with something appropriate. This was due in large part to Subaru's relationship with Beatrice. He assured him that he could not fulfill his duties as a knight without her partnership, so Shorty dubbed him Lalimansa, and the response was tremendous. Perhaps in the future, the names Natsuki Subaru and Lalimansa will be inseparable. Shorty, W, what should I do if they refuse to do an interview because of this? Lululara, too late now. Shorty, yeah, I know it is. It's a job. I don't want to give this up to anyone else now. The more calmly he thought about it, the more he felt he had done something wrong, and he felt his blood run cold. Seeing Shorty's pale face as he began to worry, Lulu Lara picked up her paintbrush. Then, again in her usual fashion, Lulu Lara begins to illustrate Shorty's turmoil. Shorty, also, Lulu Lara. Why do you draw so many pictures of me in the first place, especially when you only draw what you are interested in? Lulu Lara, well, you know, Shorty, I don't know. It's just a weird feeling to have a bunch of paintings of yourself made by you. Shorty's voice trails off at the eccentric attitude of his partner, tilting her head. In the meantime, her paintbrush has not stopped. To begin with, his initial problem still hasn't been solved. Shorty, so, what should I do? Should I bring them an apology gift after all? But if he's not mad at me, then I'm just causing trouble. Wow, I'm afraid of what's to come. Lulu Lara, go for it. Shorty, you know, Lulu Lara, you're no stranger to this. Lulu Lara waves her small hand, and Shorty sees it and screams. Behind them, in a pile of documents, Shorty's written coverage remains unorganized, and it slowly begins to tilt. Shorty and Lulu Lara's names will remain as the first to interview the royal selection candidates at the heart of the contentious royal selection, which will involve not only the Kingdom of Lugunica but also neighboring countries for a long, long time to come. Shorty, Wa, Lulu Lara, Q, for the two of them, pressed together by the crumbling pile of documents, and happily lost in the confines of the office, that is another story. A story for another time and place. As a side note, the issue of the Dragon Nation newsletter, in which this article appeared, became the best-selling issue of all time, and much of the public waited with bated breath for further news of the royal selection candidates.